Chair, you have a live mic.
Thank you, Ms. Patterson. Well, good afternoon. Welcome to Phase B of today's meeting. So we have a big agenda. We're going to cover a lot this afternoon. And if you have not silenced your cell phone, now is the time to do that because it will go off. That's Murphy's Law. And then there's about 30 registered speakers, 26 here and 4 on Zoom so far. So I just want to remind you that we're very interested in hearing what you have to say, pretty much understand why you're here to support the moratorium. But there's not 30 different ways of saying you like it. So if somebody says the same thing that you plan on saying, you're just as effective with us, maybe even more, by saying, I agree exactly what that speaker said. And just stand up and let us be known that that's why you're here. But everybody has 3 minutes, and the protocol is when the yellow light goes off, that's 30-second mark. And when the red light goes off, that's when you land the plane. Land it very promptly right there so that I don't have to interrupt you and say thank you. So with that, Ms. Patterson.
Yes, sir. One housekeeping matter that I wanted to remind everybody, because I'm afraid I'll forget later. We do have a workshop on February 6th here in the chambers regarding the strategic plan, the AUIR, and the upcoming budget process. Okay, but that brings us now for the item for this afternoon. This is item 10A at 5 o'clock time certain. This is a recommendation to direct the county attorney to advertise and bring back to the board an ordinance that will implement a 12-month moratorium on privately initiated growth management plan amendment applications for properties located adjacent to 1 Immokalee Road, from I-75 East to Oil Well Road, and 2 Vanderbilt Beach Road from I-75 east to its end, while growth management plan amendments are vetted with the public and advisory boards. This item was brought to the agenda by Commissioner Saunders, and I'll turn it over to you all to begin, and then we have staff.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I want to thank the County Commission for scheduling this public hearing. We discussed this back, I think, on December 12th. And the board did not have to continue this. The board could have said, no, we're not going to continue this hearing. But I want to thank the board for doing that because obviously there's a lot of interest in this issue. I've actually received 455 emails in support of this, and I've received 0 in opposition to it. But that's not how decisions are made. Decisions aren't made based on the numbers of pros and cons in terms of emails. I want to say that probably the single most heard of issue, the issue that I hear the most of from constituents is problems with traffic. We have great law enforcement. We have great municipal services, water, sewer, garbage collection. I almost never get any complaints, except for perhaps this past Sunday on some water issues, but almost never get any complaints about municipal services and things of that nature. But traffic is on everybody's mind. And so, again, I want to thank the board for taking the time, because this will take a little bit of time, to hear from the public. Tonight's focus is on Immokalee Road and Vanderbilt Beach Road. We have traffic problems throughout the county, but tonight we're really focusing on those 2 roads. I have 2 objectives, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, tonight. The first objective is to discuss a 12-month moratorium as was outlined by the county manager on these 2 roadways from I-75 hitting eastward. For properties that are adjacent to those roadways, I'd like to see a slowdown, if you will, or a pause in comprehensive land use changes and rezones of what is really estate zone residential property. Developers are coming in and buying residential lots, and they're paying a fee for those residential lots that reflects that it's zoned for residential. And then they're coming in and asking for a comprehensive land use change so that those residential zone lots can then be put together and developed into a commercial project or into a fairly high density residential project, condominium or rental apartments. And what we are in effect doing is, on a case-by-case basis, parcel by parcel, we're changing our comp plan. And I think that for long-range planning, that's not the best way to proceed. So first objective will be to have the board consider scheduling a public hearing on an ordinance to take a pause on those types of applications. Now, the second portion of this, and I think probably just as important, if not more important, I've been working with our transportation staff for the last month and a half to try to come up with some solutions to some of the traffic problems on these two roadways, something that staff can implement immediately. I'm going to give you one example. Staff has already done the design work and has the right-of-way for what's called a diverging diamond intersection at I-75 and Immokalee Road. Now, by putting in that type of an intersection in that location, will have a tremendous positive impact on traffic on Immokalee Road. But that project's not funded. And as Trinity Scott will explain, the county's been in this position before, where we've had an intersection with the interstate, and we have advance funded an improvement to that intersection, which ultimately results in the Florida Department of Transportation reimbursing the county for that. The effect of it is we move a project up by literally several years. There are other projects that Ms. Scott is going to outline that we can advance fund that are a whole lot less expensive, but will also have a positive impact. And so the second portion of this is to direct staff. I'm going to ask the board to direct staff to proceed with those projects. I'm going to ask the board to commit the funding for that. Once we make that funding commitment, and we can do that tonight, staff has identified the sources of these for these projects. Once we make that commitment, then staff can go to the Florida Department of Transportation and say, we have the funding available, we want to move this project up, we want to start it right away, and Florida DOT is likely to, at that point, include it in their I-75 project that's coming forward, the Moving Florida Forward project. So to me, that's an easy thing. It's a $40 million price tag, but it's something that I think this board could do and feel very good about. As I said, I've received literally hundreds of folks that are in support of a moratorium. That's important, but also advance funding these projects that's important as well. And Mr. Chairman, I think for flow of business, I think the best thing to do would be to have Trinity Scott make her presentation on what we can do, how we can advance some projects, and I think that might answer some questions as well. But I do want to ultimately get into this issue of the moratorium as well. But I think this portion of it is very timely and very important. So, Mr. Chairman, I would request that if that's okay with the board.
That'd be fine. Commissioner LaCastro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to say the reason I voted to have this hearing was my hope is that this discussion is more inclusive, more dynamic, and more productive than just 30 people coming to the podium saying yes or no to a moratorium. The gentleman in the front row here said sort of, and I'll pick on him here for a second, he said to Commissioner Saunders before the meeting started, wow, I have a lot of ideas I want to discuss with you. The reason I wanted to speak, and Trinity being next will be a perfect segue, but as you're sitting there thinking about what you want to say in your 3 minutes, merely coming to the podium and going, yes, we need to lock the gate of Collier County, which we hear a lot, traffic's crazy, you're overbuilding everything, you've torn down all these trees and you're turning everything into Miami. I don't know that that's productive for tonight, and actually it's not realistic. I said to my constituents, there's no such thing as vacant land in Collier County. It's undeveloped land that's owned by somebody, and then we do an awful lot that citizens sometimes don't see behind the scenes and in front of the scenes to work with contractors to skinny down a project. When you drive by something, you're seeing the final result, and that might be draft 20. Draft 1 through 19 might have been argued in this very room. So your 3 minutes goes by fast. I got 300 and something emails as well just saying, vote for Commissioner Saunders' moratorium. I'm hoping more dynamic discussion comes out of this, and we have more homework assignments or things that are possibilities to look into in this very specific part of the county that may or may not benefit from a whole host of things that we possibly could do. And so I would just leave you with that thought. Your 3 minutes will go by fast. I'm really hoping we hear a lot of different things. Commissioner Hall said it perfectly. There's not 30 different ways to say, I'm for the moratorium. I want to hear the other 29 things so that our staff can digest that. That's why I voted for this hearing, and very impressed with the turnout. Thank you so much for coming tonight and helping to add to our knowledge base about some things that we can look into and do for the betterment of the community. Thank you.
Ms. Scott,
Thank
show
you.
is yours.
Good evening. For the record, Trinity Scott, Transportation Management Services Department Head. The first couple slides I'm going to talk about are a little bit about how we do transportation planning here in the county. We have a large audience, and it's a good opportunity just to kind of share what we do and what you all deal with, because you work with us with different hats on throughout the year on our transportation plans. So first and foremost, this board sits on the Metropolitan Planning Organization, which is a regional transportation planning agency that is responsible for the long-range transportation plan. And that long-range transportation plan is for Collier County as a whole. It identifies the current transportation system. It forecasts the transportation needs and the anticipated growth. And currently, we're looking out to 2045. And right now, we're actually in the process of updating that plan to 2050. So we do look at long-range, how do we accommodate the growth? And that plan is responsible to select financially feasible projects to best meet our future demands. So as part of that planning process, we use the county's interactive growth model, as well as the future land use map, to identify where we anticipate additional dwelling units. And on this map, the additional dwelling units are in those darker blue colors. So we anticipate a lot of that growth to occur out east, as well as additional commercial area, once again, out in the eastern part of the county. But this plan marries up with your county interactive growth model. And we identify what do we need. If money were no object whatsoever, what can we do? And then we ratchet that plan down to a cost feasible plan that's constrained by the anticipated revenues that are going to come in based on gas tax, impact fees. We're very successful in trying to get grants as well, so we also look at that. The long-range transportation plan, we're required to break that down into 5-year increments. In those 5-year increments, when we do our long-range plan, it just says, hey, you need to do all of these improvements by 2045. But it doesn't really tell us when we have to do those improvements. So what do we use to identify that? We use the annual update and inventory report, a report that this board just saw back in December. And the annual update and inventory report, it provides us an assessment of the state of the transportation network, a snapshot one time throughout the year, looking at our non-season peak hour peak directions. During that analysis, we apply growth factors to try to determine when a roadway may exceed its capacity. And we utilize that information to not only feed our long-range transportation plan to identify what projects need to be done sooner, but also it feeds our capital improvement program, which is that 5-year document that you're seeing as part of the AUIR that ultimately rolls into the 1-year budget. The annual update and inventory report used to be something that was legislatively required. It's no longer legislatively required, but this board saw that the value in that document and has put it as part of your strategic plan to utilize that as one of our planning tools. So that's one of your board priorities as part of that strategic plan. So your strategic plan that this Board of County Commissioners works on feeds the AUIR and feeds our long-range transportation plan, and they really do all work together. So with that being said, what have we been doing? I'm going to say it was back in probably 18. I remember Commissioner Saunders saying to me, great, we're doing Vanderbilt Beach Road Extension. What else are you doing? Kind of a similar conversation what we had. And we kicked off what we called the Immokalee Road Corridor Congestion Plan, which this board adopted in October of 2021. And the goal of that plan was we looked at Immokalee Road from Livingston all the way over to Logan and said, okay, we know that with the increased growth that we have, even with what we anticipate with Vanderbilt Beach Road Extension, through 2045, we still need some more improvements to reduce congestion and improve safety. That plan identified the following improvements: the addition of a westbound right turn lane to convert that to a through lane, an overpass at Immokalee at Livingston Road, and interchange improvements at I-75 to include a diverging diamond interchange. And as part of that, we would also do improvements to Strand and as well as the Northbrook intersections. So that plan was complete. We identified improvements that needed to be done. So what are we doing now? We've begun the largest and most expensive transportation project, which is Vanderbilt Beach Road Extension. That project is anticipated to be completed in September of 2025. We're just over a third of the way there on the project, and it's progressing well. That will be a new roadway alignment out to 16th Street Northeast from Collier Boulevard. We have lots of other projects that are included within our capital project plan, but ones that are specific to this area are extending Vanderbilt Beach Road from 16th Street out to Everglades Boulevard. So giving just that additional route to be able to get in from Golden Gate Estates. We have funding programmed within our 5-year capital program for the Immokalee Road at Livingston overpass. That's the design and the construction. We have been able to obtain a grant through the Florida Department of Transportation to put $10 million towards the Immokalee Road shoulder conversion of the right turn lane to a right through lane from Livingston to Logan Boulevard. And we also have, within our 5-year program, this was a sales surtax funded project, the Immokalee Road at Randall Boulevard intersection improvements, including widening Randall Boulevard back to 8th. Sorry. In addition, since our last meeting, Commissioner Saunders and I have had a few conversations where he said, what else can you do? So here's a few things that we've come up with. We really went back and brainstormed. A few meetings back, we talked about the Vanderbilt Beach Road at Logan Boulevard intersection improvements. And as part of those intersection improvements, we had gone out to bid, and the bids came in higher than our budgeted amount. And so we had plans to put the project on hold, perhaps until our next budget year. We have already rejected those bids, but what we will do is we are going to go back out to bid and rebid this project, hoping that we'll have a better bidding environment to be able to do this intersection improvement. This will add additional turn lanes at the intersection, which we believe will help us with the operations at that specific intersection of Vanderbilt Beach Road at Logan. In addition, I talked about that larger shoulder project, or the converting the right turn lane to a through lane on Immokalee Road, which will essentially give us 4 lanes westbound in the AM. Well, it's going to give us 4 lanes all the time, but it will benefit us in the morning. We went back and we looked at that project to see if there were any areas that we could do without doing substantial permitting, where the pavement already existed. And we found that we would be able to take a subset of that project from Vailwood to Northbrook, which is immediately east of the interchange, and be able to do that restriping now. So we're currently working with our striping contractor to be able to get those quotes and get that work scheduled. We hope to be able to accomplish that over this spring. One of the biggest improvements that we're going to see from Immokalee Road is the Moving Florida Forward initiative that the Florida Department of Transportation, led by Governor DeSantis, has brought forward, which is going to provide 2 additional lanes on I-75 from Golden Gate Parkway to Corkscrew Road. For anyone who has had to go to the airport or just travel north anytime on I-75 in the evenings, lately there's been a 15-mile backup of congestion. And so this, and up to Corkscrew Road, once you get up to Corkscrew Road, it really starts freeing up. So this will be an immense help to Immokalee Road, because we are backing up all the way to and through the Immokalee Road interchange, which doesn't allow people to be able to get onto the interstate. And now then they're sitting on Immokalee Road, not letting that traffic traverse between that interchange. Since our last meeting, our traffic operations team implemented a signal timing adjustment in the morning at Vanderbilt Beach Road at Livingston Road. It consists of what we call a double run of the left turning movements. You see the lefts go in the beginning, it stops, the greens continue to go, and then before the end of that cycle, we run those green lefts again. We actually started that at Golden Gate Parkway and Livingston, and it worked really well for us. So we're doing that. We started that on January 11th. Our observations previously, the roadway would queue from Livingston Road through Village Walk. With this signal timing adjustment, we've been able to cut that queue in half by just some simple signal timing adjustments. In addition, we've been working on a project, and we're going to be implementing it over the next month, which is a retiming of all of the traffic signals on Immokalee Road from Arthrex or Collier Reserve to Woodcrest Drive, Quarry Drive. So that's pretty much the entire corridor of Immokalee Road that has traffic signals within it. The in-season recommendations are under review. Our implementation of that is imminent. We are also following that up with a second phase, which will be our out-of-season signal timing that we'll be doing, obviously, out of season this year. And that's funded through a grant by the Florida Department of Transportation. So there's an opportunity that we have. I talk about the I-75 at Immokalee Road interchange. The county conducted a study, the Immokalee Road Corridor Congestion Plan. The conclusion of that was that we needed to do a diverging diamond interchange, that interchange improvements were necessary. Separate from our study, the Florida Department of Transportation conducted the I-75 master plan. It also came to the same conclusion. And FDOT's master plan, stated that interchange improvements were needed in 2025. What I can tell you is the I-75 at Immokalee Road interchange is not included in the Moving Florida Forward I-75 project. It's not funded in FDOT's 2045 Strategic Intermodal System Plan. So what that means in non-DOT speak is it's not funded through the state. And the project has been on the MPO's priority list for over 5 years. We've been in this position before. Exit 101, Collier Boulevard. If you recall, a few years back, I came to the board asking if we could put funding forward to advance that interchange. The board supported that. We went back to FDOT, and lo and behold, FDOT found the money to fund that. We actually did not need to advance it, but it was enough to push them ahead. Exit 107, Pine Ridge Road. We did a similar corridor congestion study a few years ago on that. We had actually programmed those improvements. We were going to take them on with some nominal money from the Florida Department of Transportation. Moving Florida Forward funded that interchange. And Exit 111, Immokalee Road, we found ourselves in this same exact position in the early 2000s with FDOT when they were doing the I-75 expansion project previously, where we went from 4 to 6 lanes. We called it the IROCS project, where this project was originally planned to be included, then it was taken out, and this board came forward and put forth the dollars to be able to advance that project and be able to be reimbursed. So I believe that we have the opportunity to work with FDOT to advance that interchange improvement to allow for its construction concurrent with the mainline I-75 interstate improvements. And by doing that, we save mobilization. What I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to tell all the public that's here, when we go through construction, it's not going to be fun. Go drive Colonial Boulevard right now. It's not fun. It's in the middle of construction. But the improvement, once you get it, will be amazing. But to be able to do that concurrent with those mainline means that we're only inconvenienced by construction one time and not 2 separate times, and with who knows how many years in between. We've had some preliminary discussions with FDOT, and they indicate the design and construction is upwards of $40 million. I didn't ask them to sharpen their pencil until I could get some direction from the board, but I'd really like some direction today to go back and work with FDOT, have them sharpen that pencil, tell us how much money and what the timing would be on it, because depending on their contracting mechanism, would depend on when we would actually need to provide those dollars to them. And then I can work with our finance committee and our budget office to see what we can do, and also look and scour to find any grants that may be available as well. As you know, our team is really good at going out and finding grant money. So with that, I thank you for your indulgence this evening, and if you have any questions.
A quick question. Just, may I? Let me light up. The $40 million for the diverging diamond, my memory serves me that that's about half of what the cost is.
Actually, up in Lee County for their Colonial Boulevard project, they're about $40 million, and $40 or $50 million, and that includes a continuous flow intersection as well as an R-cut and the diverging diamond.
Okay, well, good. I just recall in one of our previous MPO meetings that there was, maybe it was 951 Collier Boulevard in 75, that it was close to $90 million.
You are correct, sir. I-75 at Collier Boulevard was $90 million, and that's a partial cloverleaf intersection.
Okay, so it's just a different.
It's a different configuration, yes,
We're
sir.
smarter now. Commissioner Castro.
Ms. Scott, yesterday in my office, you and Mr. Bosey gave me a good sort of common sense, very easy to understand, an easy understanding of what a moratorium would do. I got the same 500 emails that Commissioner Saunders got. We probably all did. I'm not saying there's probably a mixed group in the audience here, but quite a few of those emails imply that the person thinks if right now we pass a moratorium for a year, all construction across this and that entire area will cease to happen, and there'll be a freeze on everything. And that's not what Commissioner Saunders is implying, but some of the emails I got that were just a couple of sentences, and that's not the case. So I don't know if this is a good time to sort of package that, and I don't want to leap forward. I hope we have a very diverse conversation, and it's just not moratorium, yes or no. But as we all know, we got some emails that were 2 sentences. Say yes to the moratorium and stop all the building across that entire area. And that actually wouldn't happen even if we did move forward as aggressively as possible, just hypothetically. Can you, in short terms, sort of repeat what you said in my office, which sort of painted a much tighter and more eloquent sort of explanation of, people think moratorium, they just think complete halt. And then it's like, we're going to take a 12-month break on everything. And, I'll pitch it back to you. I think it was actually Mr. Bosey that said some of it, but you all are a great tag team. So
I can start, and then I'm sure Commissioner Saunders may jump in. My understanding of the proposal is that the moratorium would prohibit, for a period of time, privately initiated growth management plan amendments.
On 2 segments of roadway
Correct.
only. And are we not, and forgive, who's, I'm second on the list.
Go ahead, sir.
No, it's a chair's
Mr.
job.
Saunders.
Okay, thank you.
I'm done.
Two things, Ms. Scott. When this hearing is completed, there are going to be some motions, and one of the motions is going to be to allocate the funding for that diverging diamond interchange as well as the other projects that you have listed. And so I want to make sure that we make the motion that's going to be most effective for you to go to the Florida Department of Transportation and get this project moving. So at the end of all this, that will be one of the motions that will be made. But on to the moratorium for just a quick second, because I know we're going to get to public comment, and that's going to be the big issue. There is no single bullet solution to traffic problems anywhere in the county. Some folks are going to say perhaps, well, a moratorium isn't going to solve the traffic problem. I agree 100%. We have a moratorium today. Tomorrow's traffic is going to be the same as it was today. It's not going to change traffic. But what it will do is a couple things. One, it will send a message to developers and speculators that are buying residential lots with the belief that they're automatically going to get a rezone to commercial and a comprehensive land use change. It'll send a message that there's no guarantee that you're going to get that. But it'll also will basically put a pause to these site-specific comprehensive land use changes that is resulting in these traffic problems. It's only for a year. So albeit that's a small amount of time and it's a small location, but I think it sends the right message. And I kept this deliberately small because if I came into this commission and said I want a county-wide moratorium on rezones, there would be no consideration of it. This is very precise, very small, sends the right message, and will have some impact. It'll give us some time. And so, Commissioner McDaniel, that's what I'm trying to accomplish, and Commissioner Castro, that's my goal here.
Yes, sir.
It's not a cure-all. It's just a piece.
You already know. Are we going to have a presentation from planning and zoning with regard to this? I saw some maps yesterday with the properties that are impacted. Are you the only staff that's going to present to us today?
I am, unless you have other questions.
Okay. I have other questions. Am I going to be allowed to, I saw maps yesterday that delineated the road segments that are being impacted by this. I saw a heat map with growth. I saw the total amount of property owners that are impacted by this, and I'd like a presentation on that at some stage. Now, if you want to go to the public and have the public comment and then have that come in, I'm fine with that as well. I don't really care, but there's a lot of information that's out there that really is impactful with regard to what's being proposed tonight.
And Mr. Chairman, if I can make one comment for Commissioner McDaniel, and if the board votes tonight to go forward with the moratorium, what that means is we have a public hearing on an ordinance. So we're not voting on a moratorium tonight.
Oh, I'm well aware of what we're
I just
voting on.
wanna make sure that everybody
Appreciate
understood
you
that.
clearing that up for these people, but I knew walking in here what we were actually doing. So, and again, it wasn't my lack of support the last time that this issue in fact came up. Wasn't that I didn't want to hear from the community. As a matter of fact, I suggested that and that we move it to the evening to better engage the community and get a report from our staff with things that we couldn't in fact do. It didn't have to do with the support of the actual moratorium. So, but I appreciate your clarification, sir. So do we want to do that presentation from zoning and planning now?
I would like to hear it, but I would like to get the public comment so that we can get down to our discussions and all of our points without the interruption.
Mr. Chair, we now have 38 registered speakers here in the room, and I currently have 2 people on Zoom. I'm going to remind the speakers here, I'm going to call a couple names. We'd like you to queue up at both podiums so we can move along a little quickly. Your first speaker is Danielle Hudson, and she will be followed by Brad Cornell.
Good evening. My name is Danielle Hudson. I'm the Vice President of Public Policy at the Naples Area Board of Realtors. We are here in opposition to the proposed building moratorium being moved forward for further discussion. While traffic is certainly a worthwhile concern to discuss and to find solutions for, our board feels that congestion along 2 large arterial roadways does not constitute a building moratorium. Traffic is also not the only concern that we have as a county. Time and again, in these chambers, we have heard the drum being beat for creative solutions to the workforce housing and attainable housing concerns that we have in Collier County. We at the Naples Area Board of Realtors have for years advocated for creative solutions to the attainable housing crisis, starting first and foremost with building more housing and allowing individuals the full realization of their private property rights. While often deemed self-serving by those against development, as an industry group, along with our coalition partners in the building industry and attainable workforce housing space, we have a duty to educate the public that there has been a historical decline in the number of new housing developments each year, down from 1.7 million in the United States to 1.3 million in January 2023. Commissioners, we are still not close to closing the gap. As we heard earlier today, the demand for this type of housing greatly outweighs the supply. We acknowledge that the language of the draft ordinance does allow for development along the roadways. However, we have to ask ourselves whether the development we will get is the development we need. We believe that the building moratorium will disable or at a minimum slow down efforts to solve for concerns like attainable workforce housing and the commercial developments needed to support new housing because it will disallow consideration of projects that may require different zoning, density, and height to allow for streamlined development of affordable multifamily rental housing and missing middle housing in commercial, single-family residential, and mixed-use zoned areas. Our board believes that two things can be true at the same time. The county can look for short-term and long-term solutions to traffic and infrastructure concerns along Vanderbilt and Immokalee Road, while allowing developers and landowners to still bring forth their plans via the already existing review, approval, or disapproval process. That is in your hands. Also, we find it interesting that in the last presentation, it was mentioned that traffic is heavy in the afternoons on I-75. We posit that perhaps some of that traffic would diminish if there were housing for individuals to live in that was closer to where they work. We thank you for your consideration of our concerns and ask that you do not move forward with the further consideration of this moratorium. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hudson. You know what? We're not, all right, if I hear another comment like that, I'm going to have these guys remove you because we're not going to put up with that. We're going to run a professional meeting. We're going to be courteous, and we're going to be professional. And as the chair, I have every right to do that. And so that's just fair warning. Let's all be nice. Let's all be respectful. And that's all I'm going to say about it.
Your next speaker is Brad Cornell. He'll be followed by Ray Ann Burton.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Brad Cornell. I'm here on behalf of Audubon Western Everglades and Audubon, Florida, and wanted to add some comments in complement to what your staff have said and what a lot of the public discussion has been in the community on these two big road corridors. We recognize that the moratorium is not going to solve all the issues. There are a lot of issues in every big road corridor. We see that as well. And we also recognize the need for solving affordable housing and for looking at traffic issues. And what we see this moratorium doing is giving us a chance to stop, pause, and look at, it's not a complete stop of development. It's a pause in these rezones and growth management plan amendments that gives us an opportunity to look at the bigger picture. What are some smart ways to comprehensively solve some of our problems and address some of our issues? Among those issues, from Audubon's perspective, is that nature has important environmental services to offer in these corridors. We've seen catastrophic wildfire in the Immokalee Road corridor in the last year, and we've also seen flooding, and these are things that threaten our neighborhoods. So we want to look at ways, as we look at the traffic in these corridors, to look at some of the other issues that perhaps we can work with the natural resources to solve. Managing traffic goes hand in hand with investing in green infrastructure in these areas, like the Conservation Collier Alligator Flag Preserve, which is right across from Laurel Oak Elementary and Gulf Coast High School. And it's also part of the Mirasol Flowway, which is an important component of green infrastructure in moving water and keeping floodwaters away from where we live. Corkscrew Swamp Sanctuary has been overdrained for the last 20 years. We are suffering severe dry season drawdown of our wetlands. We don't have any wood storks nesting at Corkscrew anymore, and we need to raise groundwater levels to not only restore those wetlands, but also to fight the risk of catastrophic wildfire like we saw along the Immokalee Road corridor around Wilson. So that could be helped by considering perhaps moving in strategic areas with some central water and central sewer in these corridors. That would help raise those groundwater levels without conflicting with septic and sewer. Also, investing in transit and bike lanes would help ease congestion nominally. We also recognize and appreciate, I've driven a number of these diverging diamond interchange improvements. That makes a lot of sense. And finally, I just want to note that Audubon's Corkscrew Swamp Sanctuary has a vital interest in seeing effective management and sustainability of these two road corridors. They are the ways that most of the 100,000 people that visit Corkscrew get there and get away. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad.
Your next speaker is Ray Ann Burton, and she will be followed by Steve Harrison.
Thank you. Good evening. Item 10 on today's agenda needs to be approved and the direction given to the county attorney to advertise and bring back an ordinance implementing a 12-month moratorium on private initiated rezoning petitions requiring growth management plan amendments to increase density beyond the current plan. Growth needs to be controlled, and today's infrastructure cannot even handle today's growth, let alone the future. There's much concern with the increase of traffic in Immokalee, and without any control, it'll be even worse. These developments, density increase currently, are creating congestion and dangerous road travel and even death. The infrastructure needs to be ahead of development, not behind. Therefore, please approve this mandatorium that will slow it down and give us more chance to catch up. Since the developers are requesting these rezonings, that want to be increased in density and shorter borders to create more profits, they should pay more of the infrastructure fees and not be dumped on the public. The developments are the reasons for our congested traffic and even deaths due to the densities of the communities and the taxpayers paying most of the cost. Developers should not be allowed to reduce their share of infrastructure fees just because they state they will set aside affordable housing, which is used as a carrot to get approval. I've seen it too many times at these meetings, only to be changed at the next meeting. Other incentives that are leaving the cost burden on the taxpayers. We need to have it under control now. Please put a pause on it and let us catch up. Thank you.
Your next speaker is Steve Harrison, and he will be followed by John C. Johnson.
Good evening. I think all of us would agree that the underlying issue here is the density of utilization of the property in the county. A couple of things that are within your bailiwick that you can consider right away. Take a look at code enforcement and the rules on density. In some of our streets in the estates, we now have what are amounting to trailer parks being set up with multiple trailers occupied by renters and their pets. I've complained myself to code enforcement. They come out and look. I'm not sure they have any teeth to take any action to keep for illegal density improvements that may not even be connected up to septic facilities. In the same vein, in the building permit area, I'm aware of structures being added to without the benefit of building permits. I don't know how you control this, but people are looking for more intensive ways to use their property because their costs are so high. They want to get some revenue out of the properties one way or another. Okay? You may need to take a look at the scope of the moratorium. I live not far from Golden Gate Boulevard. The county, to take pressure off of Immokalee, has now built 6 north-south connectors to take traffic off of Immokalee and soon to be Vanderbilt down to Golden Gate Boulevard. That may now be a failed roadway, Trinity would know. But I can tell you that it's bumper-to-bumper traffic at 6:30 in the morning, every day of the week, mostly tradesmen and people going to construction sites in town. That's it.
Your next speaker is John C. Johnson, and he will be followed by Shirley Letwin. I hope I'm saying that right, Shirley.
Good evening, Commissioners. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you for giving me my opinion on the traffic on Immokalee Road and Vanderbilt Road are so congested. First, what are some of the most expensive neighborhoods in Collier County? Port Royal, Aqualine Shores, Old Naples, The Moorings, Park Shore, Pine Ridge Estates, Livingston, Woods, The Oaks. None of these neighborhoods are gated and have roads that you can use to go through them to help take the congestion off the main roads. Now let's start where the problem is, Immokalee Road from 75 to Oil Well and Vanderbilt from 75 to where it currently ends. There are 53 gated communities in this area and another 17 in the vineyards. Thank God somebody was thinking and made them put a road that ran north from Pine Ridge to Vanderbilt Beach Road. There are over 50,000 people that must use these roads to access the entrances of their gated communities, and another 50,000 that need to get home in the rural estates. Commissioner Saunders, you have been elected official for 42 years that represented this area and did nothing. County Attorney, 1982 to 1986. County Commissioner, 1986 to 1994. State House, 1994 to 1998. State Senate, 1998 to 2008. And County Commissioner again, 2016 to present. The cows are now on the beach in Port Royal. It is way too late to close the barn door, but it's not too late to drain the swamp. Thank you again for this opportunity to let me talk.
Your next speaker is Shirley Litwin, and she will be followed by Jody Ressler-Tatro.
Hello, my name is Shirley Litwin, and I would like to talk about this subject, red light running. There was a significant accident on Immokalee Road and Wilson Boulevard, and I'm going to read to you what happened. On December 1st, 2023, at 4:30 p.m., a dump truck and a truck hauling sod have collided at Wilson Boulevard and Immokalee Road in Golden Gate Estates. Eastbound lanes are completely blocked. Expect significant delays. Karen Huffman said, Golden Gate Boulevard is backed up too. I was at Immokalee 951 Route 530, and I decided at the last minute, rather than try to go back to Golden Gate Boulevard, because Collier Boulevard was completely backed up. She ended up going to 75 to 29 Olwell Road and Everglades Boulevard. It took her 40 minutes to get there. Tina Rose said, I was in the turning lane, 2 cars behind the dump truck. Both trucks went through the red light, but the sod truck didn't even try to stop at this light. What are we going to do about running red lights here? So Collier Boulevard was backed up. Golden Gate Boulevard was backed up. All these places have a lot of accidents too. And down to this, what do we want to give the people in the East? They want a Home Depot. They want a Walmart. They want a Lowe's. Give the people what they want. And it's going to cut down on traffic because now they have to go clear off of Pine Ridge and Airport. Give the people what they want. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Your next speaker is Jody Ressler-Tatro, followed by Joseph M. Harris.
Good evening. I just want to thank you, Commissioner Saunders, for hosting this meeting. I actually said something similar at a recent Collier County Planning Commission meeting when I believe it was Commissioner Shea, in reference to the JLM East development. He was listening to the presentation, he was listening to the traffic studies that were done, and he made a really interesting statement by saying, we keep approving all of these rezonings of these new developments, allowing for greater density. We have traffic studies that suggest that the roads can accommodate all of the additional cars that are going to result from these developments. But he says we don't have a good handle on the cumulative impact of everything we're approving. And I thought that was an incredible insight, and I would ask that you think about the same thing as you continue to approve developments that involve rezoning. I'm all for affordable housing for our essential workforce. They need a place to live. We need them. They're year-rounders, but they do. Obviously, all of these things are going to increase additional traffic. I don't have a solution to the traffic. I can tell you, as somebody who lives at the quarry, you put in there's a stoplight there now at Woodcrest and Immokalee Road. One of the things that I would urge you to think about from a traffic planning perspective is consider a right lane turn on that road when you're heading north, because in the evening that road is backed up all the way to the Rotary, because anybody who's going straight across Immokalee Road into the quarry is backing up the majority of the people who want to turn right. So I think that would help. The other thing that I would just ask you to think about, I've heard a couple of comments already just about the traffic and all of the things that folks are doing south of Immokalee Road, I don't think we should lose sight of the fact that people who live out east, not everybody heads south into the city. There's people that work in Bonita that are going to always have to go on Immokalee Road. And I guess my final comment would be, I don't know much about diverging diamonds, but all I can say is it takes me 30 minutes in the morning. I'm not sure why you're doing that.
They're scary. You just have to follow the signs.
Okay,
You don't die when you go through one, I promise. But
I'm not concerned, but I was up at Colonial in 75, and I will agree it was scary with all of the construction. But I would hope that there's going to be 2 lanes for people to merge onto 75 because it is backed up forever in that right lane in the evening and in the morning. So thank you for the time.
Your next speaker is Joseph M. Morris, and he doesn't seem to be, is that you, sir? At this podium, please. Mr. Morris will be followed by Mary Tadigan.
Short people. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak. First of all, I'd like to say I don't want to take up too much of your time. I did send an email to all 5 of the commissioners. I hope you got it. I hope you take the time to look at it for my suggestions and comments. I don't want to be redundant, so I'd like to thank Commissioner Saunders for hosting this and suggesting the moratorium, and the rest of the board for considering it as well. And obviously, I'm in support of the moratorium. I'm over at Heritage Bay Golf and Country Club on Immokalee Road, and it's death-defying just trying to get out of our complex. And I'll let the others speak. You can look at my email if you will. Thank you very much.
Your next speaker is Mary Tadigan. We're going to follow Mary up with Robert Smith on Zoom. Ms. Tadigan's been seated additional time from Marianne Batchelor. Can you raise your hand, Marianne? And by Chaz Tadigan, who is right there. Mary will have a total of 9 minutes. And let me put her slideshow up.
Good evening, and thank you very much for holding this session tonight. We understand you have a long work day, and we appreciate your time tonight. My name is Mary Tadigan, a resident of Naples for 40 years, and I am in District 3. And we thank Commissioner Saunders very, very much for bringing this issue forward. The Board of Collier County, the Collier County Board of County Commissioners is comprised of 5 elected members. Commissioners serve as the governing body of the county and have the responsibility of setting policies that protect the health, safety, welfare, and quality of life of our residents and visitors. I just want to point out quality of life for the residents. That's my key point there. The Golden Gate Master Plan, which has been in place since the 80s, again, it's a guide of land use and public facility decision-making to balance the need to provide basic services with natural resource concerns through the well-planned mix of compatible use with which to ensure the health, safety, welfare, and quality of life of the residents, local residents. So rezoning from low density to high density is definitely a negative impact on the quality of life of residents. Why the need to slow the growth? Quality of life, peace and quiet, shortage of resources like water, lack of infrastructure, traffic congestion, accidents, increased crime, shortage of law enforcement personnel, inability to receive proper health care. And the last thing, because it's the right thing to do. Quality of life. We need the commissioners to protect what we deserve and what we pay taxes for, and to abide by the Golden Gate Master Plan. Please, no rezoning. Resource scarcity and sustainability. Is there enough water? What about fires, evacuation routes? Is there enough roads for us to get out of there? If there are big wildfires out there in Golden Gate Estates, I don't know how people are going to get out of there. Have we thought about opening up Everglades Boulevard to I-75? Fatal traffic accidents in Collier County. In 2022, I was told by the sheriff's office that fatal traffic accidents in Collier County have risen 50%. That was in 2022. Traffic accident report, as you can see, how many traffic accidents are reported in the city. Naples had 37. That was for December. Accidents in Collier County are a major cause of property damage, injury, and death each year. In Collier County, statistics from National Highway Traffic Safety Administration show that traffic crashes remain a primary public safety issue. So as a registered nurse of 30 years, my concern for my community is the welfare and health and safety of our residents and our visitors. Collier County has seen a drastic increase in crime. These were just some of the crimes in December. Each day, the crime has just risen due to the increase of growth. Those are just some slides of our finest trying to take care of us. Healthcare dilemma. Like I said, as a registered nurse, I focus on the health of our community. I see patients every day and they tell me I cannot get in to see my primary care physician. We just have such a shortage of doctors, a shortage of all workers, but we continue to build high density with more people, and we just cannot get the health care that we deserve. I think that's a crisis. Slow the growth, please. As residents of Collier County, we would like you to restore and maintain our quality of life. Thank you.
Your next speaker is going to be, excuse me, your next speaker is going to be coming to us on Zoom, and that is Tom Easlip. Mr. Easlip, you're being prompted to unmute yourself. If you'll do that at this time. Mr. Easlip, you're unmuted. You have 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you very much for taking the time today to hear from the citizens of Collier County. At the risk of being redundant, I just want to touch on a couple points. I won't cover what other people have said. Number one, I don't know that I've heard enough about safety concerns, specifically U-turn and left turn lanes. With the increasing traffic that is coming in, mostly east on Immokalee, there are a number of places where the left turn lane gets backed up into regular traffic. And I would like to see, as part of the studies that are being done, safety concerns with that, with sudden lane changes that are happening, most especially during rush hour, because that's when they back up into the regular traffic lanes. But I have yet to hear any commentary with regards to concerns of safety and what might be able to be done to make left turns and U-turns safer than they are today. The second thing is just with regards to the density concerns. I guess it's frustrating for residents that it always seems like the builders' concerns and needs are always outweighed than what the residents would feel. It just always seems that when the zoning changes are requested, the momentum of the builders far outweighs what the residents would think. So I just want to encourage the county commissioners to have the courage to reject zoning just because they're coming from powerful builders versus the constituency that's actually voting. And the third point I just want to make is there are this side roads, artery roads. For example, I know there was reference to Immokalee and Woodcrest Drive being the first cut through from Immokalee over to Vanderbilt. This is a very small, narrow 2-lane road with ditches on either side. That if anybody is on that road, morning rush or evening rush, you'd understand very quickly the amount of backup there and the safety concern with the narrowness of that road, and it's quite a residential area. Is there due consideration being given to those roads beyond just what I would say would be Immokalee or Vanderbilt in the process? And my final point is going to be, I know there was a lot of discussion over the interchange at Immokalee and 75 and the diverging diamond, which I don't know what it is, but I could tell you, having traveled that road frequently, the problem isn't the interchange, the problem is the capacity of 75. Once you're on 75 and you finally clear through, it's fine until you get to Bonita Beach Road, it backs up again. So I would just caution thinking that the interchange itself is going to make the problem go away. it is backed up well onto 75 for at least a half mile, if not a mile, due to the inability of 75 to handle that. So I know there was a conversation about FDOT expanding 75. I think that needs to become a major priority of this commission, because until the capacity of 75 is addressed, the traffic problems, not just Immokalee, but Pine Ridge as well, which are the entrance and exit ramps, is going to continue. Thank you for your time.
Your next speaker here in the room is James Murr, and he'll be followed by Diane Oskowski.
Good evening. I'm Jim Muir. My wife and I live near Logan and Immokalee Road, and I won't repeat what everybody else has said. I fully agree with it. But what I haven't heard enough conversation about is, and I heard Tiffany say she was going to, we're working on a light timing, Trinity, I'm sorry, a light timing issue, but because it backs up so much, the traffic backs up into the intersection. I know that's illegal. We don't have enough sheriffs, deputies to support that, but at Vailwood, Logan, and Collier Boulevard, traffic frequently backs up into the intersection. Nobody wants to get stuck. They all want to move forward, and there's going to be additional serious accidents at all the intersections where traffic backs up into the intersection. I know you're working on it. I'd like to see the work done a little faster. Maybe timing the lights is the answer. Thank you.
Your next speaker is Diane Oskowski, followed by Jim Camerai. Diane has been seated additional time from Kevin A. Schmidt. Could you raise your hand, sir? Thank you. Margaret Kelton and Robert Carlson. She will have a total of 12 minutes.
I may not use them all.
Okay.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Diane Oskowski. I live at Island Walk, and I've been very diligent the last few weeks trying to get Commissioner Saunders' notice of this hearing out to all the residents at Island Walk, standing 2 or 3 hours at the post office, trying to encourage them to go to the hearings and email the commissioners, because I really care about these overburdened, overcrowded roads. And our Island Walk board voted unanimously for a moratorium, a one-year moratorium, and I am for the one-year moratorium. But that being said, I wanted to mention the Collier County Board of Commissioner hearing held on October 24th and what occurred there. That hearing was regarding the Ascend high-density apartment project. There was close to 75 speakers with a full hearing room of attendees opposing the project, which was going to be diagonally opposite Island Walk on Vanderbilt Beach Road, and we knew that it was going to affect our traffic and probably cause more accidents. Also, many letters to the commissioners voiced their disapproval, yet the majority of commissioners voted to approve the rezone of Ascend after all the protests. So the commissioners don't listen to their constituents, no matter how many show up at these hearings, speak, or write letters. Also, one of the commissioners, I won't mention his name, criticized the seniors attending that hearing, saying, in effect, there's a lot of seniors here who have nothing better to do. So, in addition to being ignored, seniors are insulted by the same commissioners who they vote to reelect. So I wonder if it's a waste of our time coming here to this hearing, speaking and writing letters. All Collier residents want is smart growth in this county, which means better planning for the current and future built roads so that the roads are not overburdened with traffic congestion, and also better planning for our environment and our wildlife so we still have some clean green space left and our panthers, bears, etc. do not become extinct. These are reasonable goals. Now we're faced with this problem at today's hearing of how to ease the traffic congestion during rush hour on Immokalee and Vanderbilt Beach roads. We're discussing this now after the damage has already been done to these two roads with the 6 laning of Immokalee Road and the Vanderbilt extension. The commissioners know it's going to get even worse for these two roads with all the future developments planned east of Collier Boulevard. Why are the commissioners reactive instead of proactive when it comes to planning? As per your request for public input on easing the traffic on Immokalee and Vanderbilt Beach roads, I did some research and came up with some ideas. 1, the easiest temporary solution is a 1-year moratorium on rezoning and building permits until improvements have been made to Immokalee and Vanderbilt Beach roads to improve traffic flow. 2, have adaptive, synchronized traffic lights that turn green at every intersection along Immokalee Road and Vanderbilt Beach Road going west from Collier Boulevard to Airport Road during morning rush hour and going east, Airport Road to Collier Boulevard during evening rush hour. The timed adaptive green lights are in effect during morning rush hour from 7 to 9 a.m. only and evening rush hour from 4 to 7 p.m. only, Monday to Friday. You can delay the start of the green light for each intersection after the first one by a few seconds so traffic moves smoothly and efficiently along both roads without any stop-and-go traffic. Side streets and north-south turns would be delayed until major traffic has passed the intersection. The goal of adaptive synchronization of traffic lights is to get the greatest number of vehicles through the intersections with the fewest stops, and there would be fewer red light runners as traffic would be flowing easily. 3, encourage flex time for businesses, agencies, etc., so not everyone arrives to work at the same time. For example, construction would start at 7, hotels 7:30, schools at 8, public agencies 8:30, banks at 10. Also, hospitals, banks, restaurants, etc., could have their workers choose their own shifts and, in many cases, be encouraged to work at home. This idea could be promoted through advertising campaigns, business meetings, etc. 4, ban truck and freight loading vehicles during morning rush hour from 7 to 9 a.m. and evening rush hour from 4 to 7 p.m., Monday to Friday only. 5, electronically charge drivers via their license plates a set fee for driving along Immokalee and Vanderbilt Beach roads during morning rush hour from 7 to 9 and evening rush hour from 4 to 7 p.m. from Collier Boulevard to Route 41 on both roads. Cameras would be installed on these two roads only. We pay more for airline tickets at peak travel time and higher hotel rates at popular times of the year, so congestion pricing would work the same way. Over time, it will pay for itself and pay for other road improvements, public transit, advertising, etc. Those residents who do not work will choose other times to travel on these two roads or use alternate routes, and workers will find an alternative way to get to work. 6, charge city employees and hospital employees parking rates to encourage use of alternate forms of travel. 7, improve CAT transportation so workers have an efficient and reliable alternative form of travel. Have pickup stops at the entrance to most gated communities. 8, create economic incentives for developers to have more worker housing in the city closer to work. 9, divert traffic to a ring road to avoid roads with heavy traffic. You would have to reside on the road to use. 10, stop allowing any more construction on already congested roads such as Immokalee and Vanderbilt Beach Road up to Collier Boulevard. And instead, fill remaining space on these two roads with parks, playgrounds, recreational areas, and other green spaces, which we do not have enough of. 11, have strong land use laws that do not encourage continued urban sprawl to outlying areas that require long commutes for workers, such as in the Golden Gate Estates area. These are my ideas, commissioners. You can take all, some, or none of these suggestions. But if you do nothing, traffic congestion will increase to drastic proportions on Immokalee and Vanderbilt Beach roads, and this will pose a real threat to the quality of life of urban Collier County, and that will be your final legacy to your constituents. Thank you.
Your next speaker is Jim Camerai.
I would like to just say, let's hold the applause. It works the same way both ways, whether somebody cusses or whether you clap and it's interrupting, so thank you.
Your next speaker is Jim Camerai. All right, well, I'm going to move on to Andrew Blitch, and he will be followed by Diane Ebert.
Before Andrew gets up, can I make a suggestion? And I'm assuming our staff's paying attention, but I'm hearing a lot of really good ideas from our community, hot spots where there's circumstances that are going on, improvements that can be made. And I would like, if you could, please submit your list to the court reporter and or our staff. I just want an assurance that you folks that drive these roads every single day, these are issues that are going to be heard. So thank you.
Mr. Blitch?
Yeah, good evening, Commissioners, and thank you for taking time out of your evening to listen to us. Before I get into what I wrote here, I want to address the very first speaker, Ms. Danielle, made a claim that if the moratorium were to happen, it would prohibit low-income housing from being built. Not true. There's plenty of already zoned commercial lots, as you know, throughout Collier County, buildings that are vacant that can be redeveloped. So this moratorium wouldn't stop the low-income housing from being built. It would just force developers to use those already commercial lots and not use residential lots. So, yeah, that statement was that bugged me from the very minute she said that. My business. I'm a small business owner here in Naples. My business is a home service business that employs 14 people, and we have 6 service technicians who are driving the roads every day in their work vans. Traffic is definitely a problem here in Naples. It is difficult for my employees to get to work on time in the mornings, and also going from job to job takes way too long, and it's difficult to get to their jobs on time. I myself experience these issues driving to work westbound on Vanderbilt in the mornings and eastbound in the afternoons. I'm always stuck in traffic. Mr. Hall, last week I heard you on the radio morning show discussing the issue. Oddly enough, I was sitting, stopped in traffic on Vanderbilt Beach Road, listening to you discuss the traffic issues on Vanderbilt Beach Road. You acknowledged that there was indeed a traffic issue that needed to be solved. You also stated that this moratorium won't make the traffic any better. That is correct, but I haven't heard many people make that claim. And if they are making that claim, they're incorrect. This moratorium won't make the traffic any better. You're right, but it will do is it'll prevent the traffic from getting worse. If you add more construction projects to those roads, then the traffic will get worse on those roads. But if you halt construction on those roads, or rezones, I should say, at worst the traffic will remain the same, but it won't get worse. Well, it won't get as bad as if you didn't do the moratorium. Given how bad the traffic already is, we don't need more construction to make the traffic worse than it already is. I would also like to talk about the rezone issue. In a recent meeting, Mr. Saunders brought up the issue, and Mr. Bosey was up here. He'd asked Mr. Bosey if he remembered any time in the past year where the commissioners voted no on any rezone project. Mr. Bosey could not think of one time, and Mr. Saunders agreed and also couldn't think of one. I did some research, and it's been more than a year. It's been several years since this commission has voted no on a rezone. While there may have been some 4-1 votes with one dissenting, the developers ultimately have gotten their way 100% of the time over the past few years. So in order to prevent traffic from getting worse and to remove the stigma that you are a rubber stamp for the developers, I ask you to vote yes on the moratorium. Thank you.
Your next speaker is Diane Ebert. She will be followed by Ed, forgive me, is it Pisa? Oh, Ed, you'll be after Diane. Diane, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Diane Ebert. I used to sit up here for 8 years on the Planning Commission. And you're right, the developers do get their ways. I moved to Collier County in 2000 when Old Cypress was being built. It was 1 lane. east and 1 lane west. It was 10 years to get 3 lanes. 10 years we waited for the 3 lanes. Now we have Logan Boulevard. The problem with Logan, and it's a great road, but the problem with Logan is it is 1 lane either way. It can't be changed because of developers. But what is happening is if there is an accident or if I-75 is blocked, we are the only north-south road east of I-75. I have gone south in the evening, and when there is an accident, they start turning on Pine Ridge on Logan to get north, to get beyond Immokalee, and to get to Bonita Beach Road. We have a big problem right there, and you're right. We back up into the intersection. If we would just follow the growth development plan and not overbuild and not use more density, if we use what is in the growth management plan, we would do ourselves a favor. Thank you.
Your next speaker is Ed Pisa. He'll be followed by Amando Massino.
Yes, hi gentlemen, my name is Ed Pisa. We live in La Mirada, which is just at the intersection, close intersection of Collier and Immokalee. I'm not going to take up all of my time because it would be redundant, and the last gentleman I thought made a very good point, and that is that the traffic isn't going to get any better. In fact, what really bothers me is that you have these plans, long-term plans, and the plans are based on something, I don't know what, because if you continue to allow developers to take residential property and build 300 homes like they're doing on Immokalee, just near our community, you've got 300 homes in the place of 3 residential, or maybe 4 residential properties. So I don't know how you can plan if you can, for the future, if you continue to allow developers to do what they want. The second point is that going out down, getting from Collier, getting from Immokalee to Vanderbilt Beach Road on Woodcrest is a disaster. You wait maybe 15 minutes to turn right to go a quarter of a mile. And if you speed up traffic on Immokalee to get east and west, it's not going to help getting onto Immokalee any better. So I think some of these plans maybe for the future need to be looked at in terms of the access to Immokalee and to Vanderbilt Beach Road. Thank you.
Your next speaker is Amanda Massino, and she'll be followed by Dr. Linda Dye.
Hi, thank you. Long-time listener, first-time caller. So thanks for allowing me to be here. I'm sorry. This is the first time I'm ever speaking in front of a group like this, so I apologize.
You're doing good.
Linda was supposed to go first. She has a bigger scope on this. However, I am a resident off of Immokalee Road. I live in Heritage Greens, and I've been a resident here for just under 2 years. And there's a big traffic problem when it comes to the do not block intersection that you guys have tried to diligently monitor, and it's continually a problem. So I just wanted to bring attention to it, and I had a couple of, ways to solve it, big ways, little ways, whatever it is, and I would love to an opportunity to share those, but I don't want to waste time because I understand that there's a lot of people here. So I just want to bring attention to the fact also that we have the Ivy Medical Center that is going to be happening right there. That is going to, as of right now, they follow the same traffic patterns as us. So if we are driving, the hardest route is driving on Immokalee Road, heading west towards 75. You have to make a U-turn at Centurnia Lakes to get into the development. To get out of the development, you have to wait until all 3 lanes of traffic stop, so the do not block intersection is free. The likelihood of people doing that is very unlikely, which causes a lot of zigzagging, a lot of people getting out there, sitting in the middle of traffic, not knowing what's going on behind them, the cars that are in traffic, and it's just a huge problem. So coming up with a couple of ways, from the perspective of, making a service road a little bit from, our exit to the area of Laurel Oak, where there's like Laurel Oak and Gulf Coast High School have gates that are set back from Immokalee Road. So there's an area that is south of Immokalee Road, Preserve Way kind of extends over, and there's public road there. So being able to utilize that and access that in some kind of way would greatly help that traffic, at least I would see. But I just want to once again bring the attention to the commercial use of the medical center that's being in there that has no straight in or out. They also have to do U-turns everywhere. And then on the other side of Centennial Lakes, you have the for sale of property that is over there. So I just wanted to bring attention to it. Thank you for my time.
Somebody clap for her.
Your next speaker is Dr. Linda Dye, and she will be followed by Doug Brown.
Good evening, everyone. I wonder if Trinity is still here.
Right behind you.
Okay, good. Trinity, I would like to have a copy of your slides to share with my community. Is that possible? Yep. All right, that's very good. I'd like to share with people the ideas that you have been talking about so they'll know what might be going on. One of the things I want to talk about is Heritage Greens was built over 25 years ago, and there are also about 55 other communities that were built along this strip on Immokalee. And one of the things is that many of these places have only one egress and ingress, and that is only one lane going out and one lane going in. So we have 527 households, probably 1,000 cars, trying to use a one-lane driveway, basically. And what Amanda talked about was that we have a don't block the box, but it doesn't. We tried. We were patient. We've talked with the commissioners. We really need a light there. Please figure out how that could happen. My people talk about this. I've been on the board as the president of the board for 3 years. Every single meeting, I hear about the traffic. It is a never-ending problem, and it doesn't look like it can get any better unless we stop the development or figure out a way to control the development and the roads that go with it. By the way, everyone sees traffic, but nobody sees water, sewer, and other kinds of infrastructure developments, which I have no knowledge of. But if we can't keep up with the roads, are we keeping up with all the other infrastructure? Here's what I'd like to suggest. In any new planning, please make sure every single development has access to at least 2 different roads, whatever you have to do. Because for us, we are dangerously landlocked. If there's an accident or a tree that goes across our Heritage Green Drive, we can't get out. It could be a flood, it could be a fire, hurricane, anything. There's no way for us to get out of our community. You could have a fire there, and none of us would be able to escape. The traffic on the road, even if you could get out, is also so slow that we can't go anywhere. I can walk to Pebblebrook in 20 minutes. But I can drive there in 25 minutes, all right? That's how bad it is in that particular area. Let's see here. I hope you'll take whatever time you need. If it's a 1-year moratorium, great. If you need a little more time to figure out the right answer, let's not keep repeating the same old things that we have been doing and repeating what the first 55 communities have done on Immokalee. Let's try and make the new ones, whatever you do, better than what we have now. And I guess that's about it. And thanks for inviting us to come tonight. And I know I have a whole crew here that would have something to say. All right?
Your next speaker is Doug Brown, and he will be followed by Dr. Alan Minkin.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Doug Brown. I've been a resident of Naples for going on 32 years. My profession happens to be country club management, which there's plenty of clubs to manage when I'm down here. I'm currently at Heritage Bay Golf and Country Club. In my earlier part of the career in this town, I was at a club way, way out east called Twin Eagles, and that was in 1998. It was a 2-lane road at that time, and I can tell you, driving that road every single day for 2+ years, it was a somewhat dangerous road at the time, but it was limited 2 times of day, early morning and then that late afternoon as everyone passed through there. You fast forward to now, and I look at a 6-lane road that's capacity seems maximized. I wish I was a traffic engineer and I had a solution. I like solutions being brought to me. I have no solutions for you. I'm hoping staff members like Trinity Scott have these answers and they can bring them to you and you're going to follow through and get these things done. I represent 1,250 doors, 2,200 plus members, and we're in support of that, and I'm not going to repeat all the other things that everybody else has said. The one thing I think we all understand, development is going to occur. You said it. It's undeveloped property that we have in this town. So it's how we develop it I think is important. I think all of us are asking is future developments need to have a means of properly and safely having an ingress and egress for existing properties as well as all future properties, whether it's 2 going in, 2 going out, whatever it is. Because I can tell you at Heritage Bay right now, I'd love to get a light, but I'm not looking at that. I just want it to be safe getting it out of the community and all the other ones down Immokalee Road. Thank you.
Your next speaker is Dr. Alan Minkin, and he will be followed by, forgive me again here, Fritz, is it Rhea? Rhee, thank you. Dr. Minkin.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'm going to be very brief. I live at Twin Eagles, and the traffic is much, much worse than when the last speaker was there, and it's not going to get any better. My family has also lived on the East Coast in Dade Broward for over 65 years, and it pains me to see the same things happening here that happened there, and I hope that we can do a better job of it. I would support almost anything. If you pump the brakes on the traffic here and we don't have to jam the brakes on Immokalee Road, great. If you need a moratorium, great. If you need a 5-year moratorium, but do your best to do it. I completely support it, and I thank you.
Your next speaker is Fritz Rhee.
Roy?
Yes, sir.
Let's take 2 more speakers and then we'll have a court reporter break.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Rhee will be followed by Krista, is it Silvestri? Sylvester, I'm sorry, I can't read that. Sir.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'd like to thank Commissioner Saunders for bringing this issue up. I've been in Naples for 6 years, and one of my observations, though, is I've lived in places like the Northeast where there's a lot more density, and there are things that could be done, I think, and that planning is probably the key thing. So I think having a moratorium that allows time to plan and also then trying to follow the plan, I think is really critical. Things like traffic calming, there are all kinds of things that are being done worldwide that I think potentially, and I got to say, I thought the traffic planning studies that were done within Collier were pretty interesting. But the thing is, you have to also then follow the plans, and to do ad hoc changes to zoning, just that it destroys the value of the plans. So I'd recommend that the moratorium would allow a little more time to come up with ways to better plan. I think people's property rights are valuable, but at the same time, somebody who buys a residential property does not necessarily have the right to get a windfall to have it converted to commercial. So I think there's something, property rights are valuable, but you don't have inevitable rights to just take windfalls and damage other people's property rights. Thank you.
Your next speaker is Krista Silvestri, and that will leave us 13 speakers after the break, sir.
First of all, thank you for allowing us to speak and to share our thoughts and our concerns with you. I did not plan on speaking tonight until I got here, so this won't be polished, but I'm going to try my best. I live in Ventana Point, right off of Immokalee Road in North Naples. I grew up in a construction background with my family, who's been building since the 1950s, so you could probably understand I support construction. I support construction when it's done right, when it's done at the right time, and when it's with good intention. I'm also a real estate agent, so I travel the road all the time, anytime, weekday, weekend, doesn't matter. We're always on the road. So I see the traffic in the morning, I see it in the evenings, and I've noticed a considerable amount of traffic jams, having to arrange our showings and getting to places on time is proving to be more difficult and difficult because of the amount of traffic that has come to our roads. The biggest thing is I would like to say that being out on these roads, I'm seeing what's happening, I'm seeing the traffic, and the moratorium is something that, like, I'll rebound off of what other people said. It's not going to solve the issue. It's not going to make it any better. But by allowing the county time to do better, to implement better planning and put things into place for these roadways, it's going to hopefully make it not get any worse. And the biggest thing is these developers, let's face it, none of them are from here. As a real estate agent, I have really great ways of finding out where people live. And I can tell you this much. None of these developers live here, number one. They don't care about us. They don't know us. They don't know why we chose to live in paradise, okay? They don't care how it affects us and what it's going to do. They also don't live with apartment complex in their backyard. Most of them have water views, golf courses, preserves, you name it. So, and I'm pretty sure anyone that's in here that has chosen to come here to live in paradise didn't want to have an apartment in their backyard. They would have chose to live in New York, Chicago, Youngstown, Ohio, like where I'm from, LA, any of those other places. We chose Naples, we chose Collier County because it's paradise. That's why we came here. And I'm in my 30s and I'm young and my husband's young. And we work really hard to live here. And we're not the bigger bear, and the construction people are the bigger bear, and they're gonna squash us. And we are the future, the young people that are coming here that want to live in paradise and that want to keep it as paradise. So I urge you to please, please go forward with this moratorium, even if it's just for a year, so it allows us better planning, us as residents time to adjust, and keep these developers, tell them to slow down a little bit. Tell them to make their planning a little bit better. And give those of us that have chosen paradise the chance to live in paradise the way that we wanted it to be and to keep it as such because it needs preserving. Thank you very much.
All right, with that, it's 6:31. Let's take a court reporter break. Let's come back at 6:45.
Chair, you have a live mic.
Five restaurants on Isles of Capri isn't what they wanted. They wanted nothing on they wanted a park on a $50 million.
Let's take our seats, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get rolling.
Yeah, I'm happy to.
Mr. Miller.
Mr. Chairman, your next speaker is, thank you, please. Your next speaker is Brian McPartland. He'll be followed by Jerry Solomon. Brian, is it McPartland? Oh, thank you, sir. And then Jerry Solomon.
Good evening. Thanks for having me. I'll be quick. I'm from Heritage Greens as well, so you've already heard from our neighborhood. And my biggest thing is the Immokalee corridor for the moratorium. I am for it to pump the brakes a little bit and see what's going on. Two things. My biggest thing, aside from all that, is the safety getting in and out of our community. It's terrible with the high school there, the grade school. We've already seen, I think, someone last year get hit on their bike coming across. So anything that we can do, I know we've tried for lights to slow it down and just kind of clear that intersection up is very important to me. And I'll keep it real quick. We've heard it all here so far tonight. The Double Diamond. I'm from Detroit originally. In the past 5-6 years, I lived up I-75 up there for my entire life. They've just installed double diamonds in Maine, Oakland County, 5 of them, and they work. The only thing I could tell you is if you're going to install them, what they did not do in Michigan or Detroit, they didn't give the community a lesson as to what they are and how to get through them. Because when they open them all up, we started kind of going around each other and like, what's going on? But once they opened it up, it really made a big difference in the main intersections off I-75. So my main thing also, that's just my comment, my experience, but also anything you could do regarding the safety and the community around there to get the space for the kids in our community is greatly appreciated.
Your next speaker is Jerry Solomon. He'll be followed by Cheryl A. Olilla.
Good evening, and I want to thank you for having this hearing. I agree with what everyone has said regarding the moratorium, whether it's crime, safety, quality of life. So I'll focus on a different topic, and I'll focus on data. Anyone who knows me knows I like to approach problems with data. Ms. Scott discussed long-range planning, and I assume any long-range planning, traffic counts are an important component. So I went to the Collier County website and looked at traffic counts, and it covers every section of roadway in the county. If you look at Immokalee east of Collier, it's grown almost 50% from 2012 to 2019. Immokalee east of I-75 has grown 32%. Immokalee west of Wilson Boulevard has grown 37%. Some of these have grown 6% a year, which means it doubles in 12 years. Simple arithmetic. How can we continue? And you might wonder why I looked at 2012 to 2019. I wanted to go to 22 because that's the latest data available. But as we all know, we've had COVID depress the data for the last few years, so it's unreliable. Yet it's still increasing in many of these roads over the last few years. So, my question is, how do these counts factor into planning? If we're going to do long-range planning, we need reliable data. And we don't have the data for the last few years. So if nothing else, we need a moratorium so we could collect realistic traffic counts to base future plans on. Going with what we have now is just totally unrealistic. So again, I ask you to be patient, wait the year, get good information, and we can move forward with reliable information. Thank you for hearing us.
Your next speaker is Cheryl A. Olilla, and she will be followed by Austin Beach.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. I've been a Corey resident for 16 years. I serve as president. It's of the association. It's a 900-home community off of Immokalee Road near Collier Boulevard. I've been in front of the commissioners, in front of the Planning Commission, in front of Trinity. You've all been very accommodating, listening to our concerns, a lot of development over those 16 years. But what I find incomprehensible is how every single traffic study that seems to be done for projects, it says that the roads can handle it. And in 2018, I believe it was, I was at one of the public hearings off of Immokalee Road on a project, and it was stated by the Transportation Department, Collier County, that Immokalee Road would be a failed road in 2021. And there were many who were saying it's already failed. Yet the approval for development has been unabated. It just continues on and on and on, and I don't understand how every traffic study that comes before the commission says it can be handled. This project should go through. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't correlate. I am in favor of the moratorium. I think we need to do a pause so that some of these transportation projects can catch up. I truly support trying to get the advanced funding because the development takes place unabated and the transportation projects are good, but they're too long into the future, perhaps beyond some of our lifetimes. So I would ask that you do consider this pause. I thank Commissioner Saunders for proposing it. It's desperately needed. Thank you.
Your next speaker is Austin Beach, and he will be followed by Monica Fish. Austin, Mr. Beach. All right. Monica Fish. And she will be followed by Gary Cluckune. I hope I'm saying that right, sir.
So I'm a Golden Gate Estate resident of 16 years, and coming into Naples early this afternoon, I experienced people run red lights, switch lanes without signaling, not slowing, stopping for racing, lit ambulances, and I actually saw that. 2 cars. Tonight it will be racing, passing recklessly, more running lights, and I mean it. There's running lights everywhere. Every time I'm on the roadway, it's a running light, and it's so scary. Accidents are out of control. I'm a part of the Facebook, Golden Gate Estates, and it's just like, are you serious? Are you serious? Are you serious? And when I'm driving down the road, I mean, to see these cars that are like upside, collided down on their backs, and then this thing that just happened in Immokalee, off on Immokalee Road. I mean, I have to say the rosary as I'm going down Immokalee because I work in Central Florida. And so when I am driving home late at night and I'm going the rural way, going on Immokalee Road to head to Golden Gate to Everglades, I'm scared for my life, absolutely scared. Because these people drive super fast, they go right behind you and then they go around you. And then they're looking at a car and they're about to just smack into each other. I do not know why they are allowed to do this year after year after year. I think that there should be more officers back in that dark area, like kind of the Ave Maria area. I like how Commissioner Saunders talked about cumulative effects. Similar to the wetlands dilemma, government keeps giving waivers away to destroy the wetlands. Soon there's going to be no wetlands, there's going to be no green area. I think green area is very important because it is a psychological thing. I mean, I've been here for 16 years, so I mean, I experienced a forest when I was in Golden Gate Estates. Now it's a terrible, kind of a sprawly looking place, and it is true. It is disgusting. People are coming, they're getting rid of their yards, and then they're putting their business stuff in, like all the scrap metal or whatever, the scrap metal and such, and they're working, and it's nonstop noise. People that moved in that area were like, I love the nature, I like the quiet, the rural, thatness. I can't even bike on my street anymore. So, and I don't really like to go all the way down to Picayune because it's kind of boring there. I like to be in nature. That's why I got that house, so I could be in nature there. So now I've had to start buying properties to try to prevent people from, getting rid of it. I want wildlife. It's very important to me, and I know a lot of people want wildlife. I get development. Some of the solutions really quickly. I think sheriffs, police officers should just sit their cars in the mediums and get some people to actually just be more law-abiding. They do that over in the Golden Gate Estates area. So it's just like an officer's car, nobody's in it, but actually people slow down. They do that all over Central Florida. Should I stop?
Just wind it up.
Okay. Electronic messages like stop texting. Grady does that well in Polk County. He does funny little sayings and such. And I just think that there should be more traffic officers driving within the public, just being a part of it. Like, they should just have somebody that's just driving, so you see their officers' cars. Because again, people will be more law-abiding when they see an officer.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Your next speaker is Gary Kluckune. He'll be followed by Richard Conover.
Thank you guys for working this late hour. I remember the last time I was in here about a year ago, January 10th, we were here till about 9:30. And I've talked to a couple of you about it, the rezoning on Isle of Capri that took place and increased the density and the burden on that infrastructure and the high rises. Everyone that spoke, as you guys recall, was in opposition to it from the community. And of course, Mr. Hall pointed out very clearly to me that I didn't know what I wanted. We didn't know what we want. We don't know what we need. We don't know what's in our best interest. That's a quote. We've got it written. And I was told I'd get thrown out, or basically when they said, what's the problem? And I blurted out density. And I blurted it out pretty loud. And Mr. LaCastra told me that didn't work favorably for my calls. Well, that is the cause. Density, that's the issue here. And a moratorium, I lived at Tahoe in '75. We had a moratorium on building. And you balance it, you work with it. But the solution, you're not obligated to give someone a rezoning. That's not a property right. One gentleman over there the other day told us, I've got no skin in the game. The developer has all the money invested. You got no skin. Well, hell, everything I got's invested in this community, in this town. And been a builder, developer all my life in the real estate business. And I have a suggestion that we seriously consider air rights above the commercial space where there's already paving, such as the Coastland Mall or the shops down on Manatee Road and 951. We could go with the zoning that's there, and senior housing, the underlying zoning privileges. For example, if you go senior housing, you've got no density limitation to speak of, and in commercial you can go high and you only have one parking space for every 2 units. So the density issue, a developer, builder can manipulate or use it to his advantage to accomplish what he wants to get done. And we can, with the zoning we've got in place, we can accomplish what we need. Getting into these air rights and perhaps a consideration for affordable workforce housing in a 20-story building, why not? They got 20-story buildings on the beach. We could get we could solve a lot of the housing and transportation and go along. We could develop 10,000 affordable housing units above commercial spaces within all the zoning, all the approvals, minimum burden on the infrastructure. And I'd like to propose that we look at some of these solutions. The bottom line is also we need the river of grass in its entirety. We need the wetlands to give the cloud cover that we used to get. And we'll talk more about that, but the board politically could help influence the governor and the president to get the river of grass, get sugar out. Thank you.
Your next speaker is Richard Conover. He'll be followed by Brooke Beardsley.
Thank you. Commissioners, thanks for having this meeting tonight. It's important to hear from the people. Commissioner Hall, you did mention a couple days ago, the traffic is the traffic is the traffic. And it is. It is the traffic. I agree with you. The moratorium isn't going to change our traffic situation. But this moratorium on rezoning, it is a symbolic measure on the commissioner's part to show us, the citizens, because we are the citizens. We are the voice. We are the citizens. We are the citizens. We are the citizens. We want you to hold up your end of the bargain with us. The growth management plan was put in place for a reason, and it's a plan to follow. It's not a new plan. It's not a living document. It's a plan that was put into place to manage our growth. I come from the Northeast, and rezoning is such an absurd concept to me. I worked for a billboard company, and my job was to find eligible real estate where we could put the dreaded trash on a stick. Billboards are the blight of everything everywhere. And to get a variance or a rezone, man, we had to make the bar so high. And to look at what goes on in our county, where it seems as though Maybe it isn't, but it seems like a rubber stamp. Like I can just come in with a bunch of money and say, hey, I need to buy up 4 of these residential lots and turn them into a high-density apartment complex. I'll pretend, or I'll say it's affordable housing, which is one of the most nebulous concepts that I have heard. What is affordable housing in Collier County? What's the number? How are you going to enforce someone to rent an apartment for a certain amount of money? We talk about property rights. I live on 7th Avenue Northwest. I bought a 3-acre parcel with my wife with a home on it. These are low density residential lots. They're at Vanderbilt Beach Road and Collier Boulevard. Part of the reason I'm here today is because the rampant rezoning, the rubber stamping of allowing just anybody to come in and rezone residential lots, either to commercial or high density, has emboldened a local charter school, Mason Classical Academy, to come into my neighborhood and try to purchase 4 residential properties at a bargain at maybe a fifth of the going price. And while it's not a rezoning issue, it's not something that you folks have any control over, they've been emboldened by your rubber stamp. So I'm here today to ask you folks to do what is right, to listen to the people, follow the growth management plan, and lay off rubber stamping rezoning. It doesn't need to happen. And again, it's not going to solve all of our problems, but this is a matter of integrity, gentlemen. It's a matter of keeping your promise to the people who voted for you. And I can tell you, each one of you, the next election, we're going to act in Collier County like we all vote for all the commissioners all the time. And if you don't do what we need you to do, we're going to vote you out one way or another. Thank you.
Your next speaker is Brooke Beardsley. Brooke Beardsley. All right, I see no one responding. Amy Kurtz. And Amy will be followed by Kathleen Curatolo.
I'm back. Good evening. Thank you, Commissioner Saunders, for allowing this meeting to happen. It's a little overdue, but it's better late than never. I was going to say everybody's kind of said what I wanted to say, except for a couple of things. Just saying yes to every developer isn't a must. Let's take a pause. As you know, we were just talking about apartments. My street is going to go from 45 homes to 208 apartments. We're smack dab in the middle due to rubber stamping, which is, in my opinion, is just ridiculous, but that's a done deal. But let's take a pause and see what happens, what transpires when these 500, 600 people move in on Vanderbilt Beach Drive, and they have to do U-turns and pull in front of Island Walk. And then when we have Mason Classical Academy right down the road with no buses, so every parent has to drop off their kid and pick them up on 951 and Vanderbilt Beach Drive. Let's see how that works, and then maybe we can decide what other building can occur. Stick with the growth management plan. Is it a joke? I mean, if it is a joke, let's revise it, let's amend it, let's own up that the growth management plan in Collier County doesn't mean a hill of beans. It's not working. You don't abide by it, and it's caused a lot of trouble. Being here 38 years almost, seeing one gated community, another gated community with no side roads, one entrance, one exit is scary, and we watched it all happen being here this long. There's no Pelican Marsh was built. I'm like, well, certainly they're going to put a road in between that goes between Airport and 41. Nope, no road. You have Immokalee, you have Vanderbilt. That's it. Maybe we should interconnect some of these developments. Maybe we could interconnect Island Walk with Heritage Green. I don't know. I know everyone's worried about security and safety, but maybe that might be something helpful to think about putting pathways or something in there. Let the kids ride their bike through if parents allow that. I mean, that's about all I want to say. And, let's just do the right thing. Let's think about the people. Let's think about our future in Collier County. I'm moving, I'm done, I've seen it, I've lived it, I'm gone, but let's make it good for everybody else. Thank you.
Your next speaker is Kathy Curatolo. She'll be followed by Donald Schneck.
Good evening, Commissioners. Kathy Curatolo. I represent the Collier Building Industry Association. 90% of the companies that I represent are small businesses, folks who live and work in this community. First and foremost, I want to thank you for this evening's town hall meeting. I'm very impressed, I'm encouraged, I'm enthusiastic about the transportation ideas that have been presented this evening. When you talk moratorium, it's very frightening to my members. I think we need to be very clear, very committed to an understanding of what privately initiated GMP amendments are. How many have we had in 2023? What effect do they have on the process of construction in our community? And how they affect transportation. I personally have lived in this community since 1997. I would be more than happy to serve doing research on some of the ideas that were presented this evening and work with our community, our commissioners, and those folks who work in the industry to work on some of these transportation issues. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak this evening.
Your next speaker is Donald Schneck. He'll be followed by Jerry Manning.
Thank you, Commissioners. I look at this after a 45-year career in transportation, and I look at the issues from a transportation planning perspective. When you look at the study area, you're drawn immediately to Immokalee and 75. You have a long-range plan for 75. I look at the intersection of Immokalee, and I see when you prioritize and run the traffic signals, it looks like you're prioritizing each individual traffic signal. And what that's doing is that's slowing down the most important throughput of traffic, the straight throughs. And when you don't do that, you slow them down, stop them, you're congesting everything else. So you got to prioritize the throughputs, steal time from the side streets, and get that moving. I really enjoy your idea of introducing the diamond intersections. That's a very good idea. When you do that, try maybe not to impose or obviate the potential for doing what you did on Golden Gate Boulevard there at Airport, where you put an overpass on. Just in case things get so bad, that could be a long-term option. But you need to look at things from a network standpoint. Someone doing traffic signals is looking at them independently, and you're not optimizing the throughput movements. If I look at key times on Immokalee and Collier, you've got 3 lanes turning left there, and what they do is they get off Immokalee and go down to Vanderbilt Beach Road, and they just make that bad. So the issue is improving the throughput on Immokalee, and that's really what you need to do.
Are you retired?
No, I'm the federal government's risk manager for their worst projects.
Get his contact information, please.
Your next speaker is Jerry Manning. He'll be followed by Lawrence Holbert.
Hi, I'm Jerry Manning. I live at in Old Cypress, 7399 Monteverde Way. And you probably know that we're going to have a roundabout now coming out of Logan and our community. And it's going to be a real exercise in learning, because people coming off of Immokalee, taking a right or taking a left and coming into our roundabout that's immediate outside of our development. I mean, I know what roundabouts are about, and I've lived in them and around them for a long time, but a lot of people are going to have a lot of trouble with this. Hopefully it'll work out, and we won't have more accidents clogging that way. I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you very much for bringing this moratorium to our attention, and that we can offer our opinion. I'm in favor of it. A moratorium without a real concept about what you want this community, what we want this community to be like in the next several years, many years, decades, is a huge discussion. We understand that there'll be maybe 20 million people moving into South Florida in the next 20 years. I'm not going to be here. I'm almost 80 years old. I'll be 80 in July. But a lot of people are going to be here, and kids are going to be here, and grandkids are going to be here. If a surgeon was looking at our corridor, they would say we are a heart attack waiting to happen. We got clogged arteries, and the only way to save this patient is to do bypass surgery. Well, bypass surgery means condemning land so you can put in other roadways. And that's a problem. That's going to be a problem for drainage. That's going to be a problem for communities. That's going to be probably a problem for landowners who do not want to give up their property to a condemnation, which you will have to do in order to put these roadways in. It's a tremendous problem. My feeling is that right now what we can do, what we should do, we as taxpayers, I think it's conservation. Collier has a certain amount of money. There are properties along the corridor that could be purchased and retired. And there are properties that could be developed for community necessary services. But I understand the profit motive. I've been a businessman all my life. I'm an entrepreneur. I've been a miner in Australia. Believe me, we have more environmental constraints in Australia than we even dreamed of having here. But I just want to say that I think that you guys are presented with a tremendous problem. And the thought process that you're going to have to put through is not just for now, not just for 10 years from now, but it's for a very long-term problem that we're going to have in this country and in this state. So thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Mr. Chairman, your final registered speaker for this item is Lawrence Holbert.
Thank you all. I appreciate the opportunity to speak before you, and thank you for taking the time to listen to us. I have no idea where each one of you all stands on this issue. And what I'd like to ask you to do is you consider how you're going to move forward is to answer these questions. Where's the fire if you're against this proposal? Why not have a moratorium? I'm asking that question. What would be the overriding positives of voting not to have the moratorium? Secondly, what would be the harm created by voting for Commissioner Saunders' proposal? I'd like to know, and I hope you know, and I hope that you'll be able to articulate that. Finally, I want to sincerely thank all the commissioners for your service, for your time. And I've lived in about 5 different counties, and I want to thank you for not only the work you do and the leadership you provide, but you have the most outstanding staff I've ever had the opportunity to work with. The question, they're so helpful. They honestly have the attitude that we're here to serve, and they do. So thank you all.
Mr. Chair, that was our final public speaker for this item.
So we want to open this for discussion. What do we want to handle? Let's handle the moratorium discussion first, and then we'll move to the 40 million question. Mr. Saunders.
On the moratorium, and as I said at the beginning, this is not a solution to a problem. It's not even close to a solution to the traffic problem. And as several speakers have said, if we vote to advertise an ordinance and come back for a public hearing on an ordinance to impose a moratorium for a year, traffic isn't going to change one little bit. But what it will do is a couple things, and I think they're important. One is it'll send a message to the community, to our citizens, that we do care about the problem. We do care about the issues that they face as they're trying to enter and exit their communities. And we want to take a pause so we can try to implement additional solutions to help solve that problem. It will not slow growth. It will not stop development. But it will send a message to the community, and it will also send a message to speculators that are purchasing single-family residential lots with the understanding that at some point in time, they can turn that into a high-density residential project or into a commercial project. We need to send a message that our zoning is important, that we are not a rubber stamp. I will say, and this is a little bit difficult for me to say, but I've kind of found these rezones and these comprehensive plan changes, they kind of sneak up on you. They're site-specific. Oh, what's the harm in this particular development? But then you start adding them up. And what we're doing is we are basically destroying our comprehensive plan one parcel at a time. And I think we need to take a pause and stop the bleeding. And so, Mr. Chairman, that's why I'm going to make a motion to, at some point, I don't need to make the motion right now, but I will make a motion to direct the county attorney to advertise and come back with an ordinance to impose the moratorium as has been described in the executive summary that I presented. Moratorium for 1 year on site-specific land use changes, comprehensive plan changes, as outlined in that executive summary. So that's why I've brought this forward.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner McDaniel?
Yes, earlier I had a discussion. I saw some maps yesterday, and I think that if we have the capacity, Mr. Bosey, Mr. French, do we have the capacity to show those maps that we were shown yesterday about the impacted properties that are out there, or no?
We do.
Because I think it's important for the community to see the corridors that the moratorium imposition's looking at, the impacted properties that are on those sites or on those segments of roadway, and how many property owners are actually impacted by this. Dun, 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 dun.
Thank you, Troy. Good evening, Commissioners. For the record, my name is Jamie French. I'm the Department Head for the Growth Management and Community Development Department. With me this evening is our Planning and Zoning Director, Mr. Michael Bosey, as well as in the back of the room, we have Ms. Jamie Cook, who performs the function of Director for Environmental and Development Review, and new to our staff, Mr. Burt Miller. Burt has got a diverse background, both in GIS, as a former GIS professional, and currently reinstating his AICP planning, but he was one of the very first planners in Maricopa County, Arizona, and he's worked all over the country, part of our long-range planning and resiliency group under Chris Mason. But Commissioners, just taking a look, and staff just really looked at those corridors identified within the moratorium that's being mentioned. And so we simply just ran under the property appraiser data and what was made available based on non-government owned properties that weren't currently within a planned unit development. And these were an aggregate of estates properties as well as mobile home, agriculture type properties. And it was a pretty diverse range. Some are not developable, meaning by size. So when you've got some that are illustrated on here, and I'll show you another caption of really what the impact of some of the already zoned properties would look like. These are, in the shaded areas, these are all those previously zoned areas. So we just kind of opaqued it to show you what's currently out there. Now, this is not a representation of what was approved and what has already been built. This is simply what was left out, and these are the vacant parcels that would be impacted by those. Now, as Commissioner Saunders and I spoke yesterday, this would not preclude a developer who wanted to assemble land to put these lands together, perhaps buy the donut, the center of the donut or the hole in the donut, that could very well have a home on it, that could already have a development, that could put these properties together. But all in all, it's about 57 parcels, and some of them are under common ownership, And you can see there's a couple parcels, like on parcel number 23, we understand that that is owned by the Diocese of Venice. And we've been in talks with them over numerous years about what they intend to do with the property. And so we never want to say, as Commissioner LaCastro said, nothing's in perpetuity, but we don't believe that the Diocese of Venice would ever be compelled to sell that property for development. And that's right there at the corner of Wilson and Immokalee Road. But all in all, we're about 57 parcels of an aggregate amount of just under 217 acres.
Does that include parcel 23?
That would be inclusive. We only shaded it out, but it is under looking at that data. And
I understand. We have to take it into
Right.
consideration because it's there. I understand.
And so here's really kind of a blow up of the map legend that exists within those maps. And we've got this in several different layers. I can tell you, Commissioner, realistically, when you put me in this position all the way back in 2010, the one thing we've done is we have enhanced our data to a point where our margin of error is probably way less than 10%, maybe just over 5%. We run a very transactional-based software and development program that this board purchased many years ago, and we have enhanced that to a point where they're actually able to sell more software because of the enhancements we've made and the data we're able to capture. So I can tell you the effects of COVID. I can tell you what was built, what the intended uses were. Unfortunately, with some of the state preemptions that are out there, as some of your speakers spoke of this evening, with regards to businesses that have moved out to the estates, vacation rental by owner, we're preempted. We don't track that. That's not available data to us, and it doesn't come through your permitting software. But this is what we have demonstrated to the board before, and I think this is what you were talking about, Commissioner McDaniel, with regards to residential homes that we have seen developed. These are homes that received a certificate of occupancy where, whether they're a year-round resident, we did not look to see if they were homesteaded or not. We know they were built. There is service provided to them. There's an FP&L meter. They can, for lack of a better term, they can flush toilets and make ice. So they can occupy these structures.
Sooner or later, somebody's going to be in one of those houses.
30 seconds or 30 days or 30 years, it's irrelevant to us with regards to the Florida Building Code and the way we do and the way we perform the zoning action under that state law. And you can see over the last 10 years, and it's certainly been enhanced during the COVID years, where we saw a migration of homes and we saw more activity in those estates. Clearly, in the way this map is demonstrated, almost like a heat map, as I've demonstrated to this board before, we're starting to see a great deal of urban sprawl on those lots that exist currently in Golden Gate Estates. And of about 25,000 platted lots that exist there east of 951, we've seen a significant change in that number of what's available left to build. And so this would demonstrate your commercial compared to your residential. From the economic development side, we recognize that businesses are going to chase rooftops. No different than you have items coming before you. Look at the Planning Commission next Thursday. What we're going to see is we're going to see additional commercial come forward as those residential units come online where they can pencil out the number.
Hey, Jim, you got the same slide.
I'm sorry. So it is significantly different, especially when we're seeing those eastern lands start to be more occupied both by PUDs and both by these residential already entitled properties, to where the behavior is being forced to drive east to west to receive goods and services, doctor's appointments, jobs. And although we're seeing Publix or a gas station come out in this community, this is where we've talked, and Mr. Bosey can certainly speak of this, but this is where we've talked about the villages and why we put those requirements on there, that they provided enough commercial to not only support their community that they intend to develop, but also those neighboring communities, so that we can perhaps change that driving behavior from the west to the east now, certainly to try to impact that east to west direction. And then finally, here's your Golden Gate Estates parcels that you asked for yesterday, and I think this was our conversation that you brought out, because we've provided this to the board. This was today. So there's approximately 8,900 vacant parcels that are not in government ownership, that have not been built, that are greater than 1.13 acres. Now, that does not take into the fact if I've got a 5-acre lot, I can split it. If I've got a 10-acre lot, I can split it a couple times and come before the board and create a subdivision by the Land Development Code. But there are alternatives, but this is simply vacant properties under the property appraiser data, and this is directly out of their data today. And this is what we ran this evening.
There's about 9,000 of those left that are still yet undeveloped, if I can see that from here.
And I apologize, again, this was kind of a last-minute chart, but in comparison to 2022, there was about almost 9,600 vacant lots. So that's a big number, and especially during the COVID years where we tracked all in all, we were averaging probably around 24,000 inspections per month, building inspections, and right around 60,000 building permits per year. And so what we've seen year over year now, because of scarcity of commodities, cost of commodities, scarcity and cost of labor, we've actually seen about a 23% decrease from COVID years to current, still tracking about 1% to 2% higher if we remove that anomaly. So we're still on an upward swing, but as Mr. Bosey would tell you, is that if you look at your annual population growth compared to previous years is now below 2% on an aggregate level year over year.
Okay.
And we're available to answer any questions that this board might have.
That's wonderful information. I do have one quick question for Trinity, if I can, and then we can move into deliberations and discussions. For record's sake, for my brain, to what capacity do we build our road systems from a level of service standpoint?
We build to a level of service E.
Which, for non-educated people,
Depends on the specific
which is
roadway.
me, by the way.
For a 6-lane facility is we look at PM, peak hour, peak direction. So afternoon, typically that's an eastbound direction, is roughly 3,000 to 3,500 vehicles per hour.
On a 6-lane facility?
Yes.
Is there, and the adage that comes to my mind is we don't build a church for Easter Sunday. We build a church for the regular accommodations and then suffer from overcrowding on Easter Sunday. So our capacities on our road systems are naturally going to be constrained during AM and peak PM traffic times. We don't build our road systems to accommodate those influxes of traffic.
We definitely don't build our roads for those large influxes, particularly right now for seasonal traffic. We are building to have just enough capacity to move the vehicles during our off-season timeframes.
Thank you.
So what you're saying is during season, it's super compounded.
Yes, sir.
You know what you should add, though, to that, Trinity? It makes it sound like that's just what we do. FDOT does that in the whole state of Florida, and every state's transportation agency follows that exact same model. So we didn't invent it here in Collier. We're not dumb and stupid or any of those. And I know you know that, but we sit in this room a lot with FDOT for hours when this room's empty with citizens, and we have that exact same conversation, and that's directed by them. So I don't want any, I want to make sure that, we're speaking clearly to the citizens who are listening, and maybe they're listening and following this for the very first time, and rightly so. They're unhappy with traffic and build construction and whatnot, but there's an awful lot that got talked about at the podium here that actually we can't legally do. I wrote down all the things here that people said that actually are either untrue or we aren't able to do it. And I think you would confirm that with FDOT. I think they've sat in here for hours and told us that exact same thing. We build for traffic to move in the off-season And then on Easter Sunday, the church is overflowed. And that's their direct. We can't change that.
And there's reasons why we do that. It's a cost standpoint as well of, to build new roadways or to widen these roadways further would be very costly to the taxpayers. Also, from a long-term maintenance strategy, whatever we build, we have to maintain. We have to resurface too. So you don't want a lot of pavement sitting out there that 3/4 of the year isn't being used. So those are all decisions that have gone in all through the years on why those decisions were made and why that's what we follow. And you're right, that's what major communities follow, our surrounding communities as well.
Right. Well, to Commissioner LaCastro's point, the public seems to think that, well, they don't count traffic during season because they're trying to skew the numbers. That's simply not true. We're trying to do things as smart as we can, the way that we're told to do things, and for the long-range planning. And with that, I want to address a few things. I listened really diligently tonight, and one of the main themes of everyone's comments were, it gives us time. It gives us time to study. It gives us time to mitigate. It gives us time to take a look and to reassess. And whether we do a moratorium or not, nothing is bothering our time to do any of that. If we put a halt on applications, we still have the time to do everything we ever wanted to do. We're not constrained on time. And another thing was mentioned a lot about the powerful builders and the ones that have all of the money. I don't care if you have an application and you're a billionaire or you got $200 in your pocket. I'm not looking at you. I'm not looking whether you're from here or whether you're not. I'm looking at what the public benefit is for the application and for the applicant. Commissioners, we have a growth management plan. Why don't you stick to it? Well, if you think about the words, there's growth. That means we are going to grow. There's management. Means we have the responsibility to manage that growth and do it well. And then there's plan. We have to have a plan, which we do in place. So I agree with a lot of the comment about stick with the growth management plan. I understand it. I get it. Commissioners, why are you reactive and not proactive? Well, let me tell you why. The traffic that we have today and the growth that we've experienced today are not our decisions. They were made 10, 15 years ago. So that's why we're reactive. The proactive part is where we can go forth and do it smarter. But the moratorium as far as traffic, we heard a lot about traffic, people running red lights, people not obeying, people backing up into the intersections. Crashes, yes, all that's true. Commissioner, you said the traffic is the traffic is the traffic. It is. It's what we have to deal with. And by what Ms. Scott brought forth today and some of the changes that we can implement, we can help that. But a moratorium is not going to make a hill of beans different in the traffic today, tomorrow, or a year from now. It's just not going to make a difference. The assumption that if we don't do a moratorium is that we rubber stamp. That's another term we heard a lot. We're going to rubber stamp stuff. I can tell you right now, as this commissioner for District 2, I'm not rubber stamping anything. The real message that we can send to the public is to the people who are assuming that they can come in and ask for a rezone and get it. That's the message. We deny some of that stuff that's asking for high density that just doesn't make good sense. That's the message that we can send. But a moratorium, I understand what Commissioner Saunders is saying as far as the message to the public, but the real message is the truth, that we don't have to, we're not the Bible says that we owe no man but love. And that's it. We don't owe them rezoning. There was a project that was coming today. I'm going to say it publicly. I am not in favor of it from the density. That project may change. We'll see. But while we are talking also about getting, 40,000 people come in Collier County every day, 40,000 people leave. And there's been discussion on how we can lessen that if we can get the workforce or some of those people that are traveling that road, if they can live here locally to lessen the commute. And that does make a lot of sense. And I can see in theory how that would work over time. But what I don't understand is if we have a project that has 200 homes and 30% of them are going to be affordable. So now we're going to take 60 people off of the road, but we're going to add 140. So we're going to increase to decrease. And I don't follow that logic at all. We had some surtax discussion this morning offering a company to do 100% affordable homes. That's the kind of smart growth that we can do. So, I welcome the discussion. If you have any questions, commissioners, I'll entertain them. Commissioner McDaniel.
Yeah, Lawrence, you brought up a couple of good questions that I've been arguing with myself about with this evening's hearing. For those who don't know, I'm not in favor of a moratorium. I have concerns about litigation for the community with regard to it. I have concerns about, even though my county attorney told me very clearly yesterday that this board can do pretty much anything we want until the judge says we can't, I don't want to on purpose walk into litigation. We haven't talked tonight about the enormous efforts and reprioritization of infrastructure for our grid system in the east. I would like tonight for us to have a discussion. I don't know if you fellows are coming or not, but I know myself, I'm going to Washington, D.C. in the latter part of April. I'm endeavoring to schedule a meeting with the Federal Department of Transportation. I would like support from this board to be able to move forward the opening of the partial interchange at Everglades Boulevard and I-75. I've lived here for 42 years, ladies and gentlemen. Short of Mary Tadigan, some of you folks are all new growth to me. And so we're suffering on a regular basis from good growth and bad growth. Growth is inevitable. Our goal has to be to endeavor to manage it. I got hung out by that young fella, and I'm pointing at you, young lady that lives in Bentenna out there. I got hung out by that guy. He came to me, big, long, sob story, told me all kinds of poor me things, and I agreed, because typically you're allowed 1 or 2 units per TDR within the Rural Friends Mixed Use District, and I agreed to allow him increased density at I think 2.5 units per TDR. But we got some really environmentally sensitive lands that he went and bought, so I traded it for the environmental sensitivity side. But the next thing I know, he dumped that piece of property off to Pulte. You're living there now, and he moved back to Tampa. He was one of those people. I was misled by that argument, and I can only say out loud that it won't happen twice. I think we have to remember we have a choice to accept the positives and the negatives that come with this inevitable growth. There's been a lot of discussion tonight about that Ascend project that we approved over on Vanderbilt on the west side next to the cemetery. I think, Gary, you and I were talking about it. We're sitting here looking at a developer that owns a piece of land. The uninitiated believe that it can only be developed for 7 homes, 7 single-family homes. And we approved 200 units. And folks in Island Walk are still mad at me about approving that development. What did I get? A development that's going to produce up to 400 trips. Enhanced setbacks. I got enhanced buffering. I got a fire hydrant on 7th to help the residents with their fire protection over there. I got control and no access out onto Cherrywood out of that development. I think maybe except for an emergency access that was in there, but no ingress and egress. What you folks didn't see was by right, a charter school, and we're now facing it for, there you are, for the folks over on the west side or the east side of Vanderbilt, for a school by right can come in there with the site development plan. No control on access, no control on setbacks, no control on anything, and plunk a school in there. And all we can do is suggest by state law, that they try to manage their traffic and manage their internal circulation and keep the parents that are coming in there. And the current model for a school is 1,000 kids in a pile, K through 12 in one building. And so on the Ascend project, I'm sitting here weighing up to 400 trips with the enhancements, with the traffic control, with the additional buffering, so on and so forth, or I was staring at 4,000 trips. That's what you're going to see when Mason Academy comes in there on that east side. And we have nothing to say. We have nothing to say about that. Now, what this board did do today in our earlier session is this board agreed with me to give direction to staff to amend our GMP and amend our LDC, Land Development Code, to force the charter schools that to date we've been treating as a public school system to come in as a conditional use, at which point you have a say-so. I personally believe we're at the beginning of the gold rush. We were all happy about, well, not all of us, but a lot of us were happy with regard to the school choice that was promoted in the last legislative session, the voucher system that lets the money follow the child, which lets parents better educate their children and put them where they believe they need to be. But on the same token, we have these charter schools flying at us right now. And right now the model's K through 12 all in one building. Pretty soon we're going to see elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools that can be set on a different size footprint, considerably smaller, and in all of Golden Gate Estates, irrespective of where they are, those smaller footprints, those vacant lots are availed for a school today, by right. And that's an important factor that folks need to bring into consideration that we have to weigh with regard to the property rights that already currently exist when we're making a change. Now, I do concur with Commissioner Saunders. A message needs to be sent that we don't have to approve every single thing that comes along. But I also believe that moving towards taking of the property rights on some 47 property owners that are along there that have to come to us, that have to propose that that their density increase is good for the greater good, in relationship to right here, that map that's up there right now, there's 9,000 rooftops that could come in that are going to increase the traffic on the road systems that are already exacerbated. Now, I would highly recommend and support a hearing to review all of the suggestions. That one nice lady, oh, there she is in the back. She had 8 or 9 different ideas. Some of them were kind of out there, but I'd like to review some of those were really good ideas. I'd like to review them. We have had discussions in the past when folks have come to us and brought ideas, and I'd like those to be weighed. I'd like those to be vetted. I'd like those to be discussed. How much is plausible? There was one fellow that talked about, and Trinity said, we're finally getting around to doing some restriping on Immokalee Road. Finally, those are things. What can we do now to assist? I'd like to have our sheriff's department here. There's no argument that we live in one of the safest communities in this country. But we need to engage with our sheriff's department. We need some way for the community. I mean, today, I had to go out to Tractor Supply on the East Trail, so I had to go around by the bus station on the other side here. That traffic signal could have even been there. People coming on the westbound side on 41 heading into town, they were lined up in front of me, 5 cars deep through that intersection. There was that one lady that lives out in the estates was talking about the poor driving habits of our community. I'd like to engage with the sheriff. I'd like to find a way so that those of us that drive our roads all day, every day, have an opportunity to report hot spots on a non-emergency line so that when you're involved with something like that, that will better help our already limited law enforcement agency to hit these locations to prohibit that type of clogging that in fact transpires. The 40-some, 50-some odd parcels of land, if you apply the maximum density, if those folks were to endeavor to rezone those lands, some of them are so small that an assemblage would have to be accommodated. But if you apply the maximum density with the affordable housing density bonuses, we're talking about around numbers around 5,000 total units on those, if my math is correct. There's 9,000 right there. And we haven't got into the rural villages that are already approved to the east. The rural village that's coming up on Immokalee Road. I would rather we focus our energies on prioritizing the available tax dollars for the infrastructure for the folks that we already have. And that's the improvement of the grid system in the east. That's the opening of I-75 and Everglades Boulevard. That's the 4-laning of Everglades Boulevard farther to the east from Oil Well down to Golden Gate Boulevard to give alternative routes. There's an accident tonight. While I was sitting here, one of my friends sent me a text not too awful far from where you folks live out there at Ventana, and there was an accident there and traffic stopped up head on. All you need is one accident and we're all sitting there talking to one another. You can't, you know, there's not enough signage to control people to make good decisions while they're driving. But enforcement's an important component that I think we need to be having in order for us to address the immediacy of the need to have better traffic flow within our community. I'm totally in support of the advancing of the funding for the diversion diamond at I-75. I really want to get specifics because you flip through your chart. I'm looking at Trinity. She's hiding from you on the other side over there. I really want to see the dates that were out there because the proposition for the 8-laning of I-75, the diversion diamond at 951 Collier Boulevard, Pine Ridge Road, those are going to be huge, huge components for the mobility of our community at large. And I'd like to see the date certains on those. So I've said enough for a minute.
Mr. Saunders.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple questions for the county attorney. Commissioner McDaniel said that he was concerned about litigation. My understanding is when we're dealing with a comprehensive land use change, that's a legislative function of government, and we can say yay or nay to a legislative function like changing a comp plan with a reason or with no reason. Is there liability, potential liability, in saying no to a comprehensive land use change?
Provided you're not being arbitrary or capricious, no. You can say no.
Okay. Well, that doesn't quite answer the question.
Arbitrary and capricious is, I would say, okay, we're not going to vote for this because we don't like you. It has nothing to do with the merits of your proposal.
So if there are concerns of traffic and that sort of thing.
Concerns of traffic, concerns of density, concerns of compatibility, all are fine reasons to turn down a comprehensive plan amendment request.
Okay. So I think that's what they call kind of a red herring in terms of legitimate reasons for a particular position. We don't have a liability issue by imposing a moratorium for 1 year. We don't have a liability issue if we vote no on a comprehensive land use change, as long as it's not totally arbitrary. I don't like the color of the tie you're wearing today, so therefore I'm going to vote against this. So I don't think that is a particularly legitimate concern. You said, Commissioner McDaniel, that if you did sort of the math, maybe it's 5,000 units. That's still a lot of traffic. That's still a lot of units. And all I'm asking the board to do tonight, and I'm going to make the motion, I'm going to make it now, that we direct the county attorney to advertise a public hearing on, for a moratorium as outlined in the executive summary, and for that public hearing to be advertised and brought back to this board. We don't have to do that at a 5 o'clock hearing if there's 3 votes to do that, but let's just go ahead and get that issue off the table, because I do want to talk about these improvements. But so I'll make that motion. If that passes, fine. If not, I've got the subsequent motion on these improvements. So, Mr. Chairman, that's the motion.
So we have a motion to move the moratorium to a public hearing. Is there a second? Motion fails on lack of a second.
Then let me make a second motion, Mr. Chairman, and that is to take the projects that were outlined by Trinity Scott, especially the Diverging Diamond project, but also the project on Vanderbilt Beach Road and Logan, and there were several others, the restriping and those sorts of things. I'd like to make the motion that the board is committing the funding to those projects and direct staff to work with DOT to advance those projects.
I'll second the motion if I can talk to the motion maker.
Sure, go ahead.
I'd like the motion maker to give consideration to the input from the community tonight and have that as part of that hearing with regard to locales throughout the community.
Yeah, so certainly staff needs to, I don't have any problem adding that to the motion. Attorney Ms. Scott has already told me that she's keeping copious notes and will be implementing some of those suggestions, so that's certainly part of the motion.
Okay, and I'll second it.
Okay, I have a question. I'm all about it. I love the fact that we can get this rolling because it's needed. But where's that money going to come from?
So Commissioner, once again, Trinity Scott. Our first step in this will be going back to the Florida Department of Transportation, having them sharpen their pencil and get the final numbers and the timing for that. And then we will come back and we will work with the county manager's office, our Office of Management and Budget, and our finance committee. Most likely it will come through some sort of loan is my guess, and to be paid for. This is an impact fee eligible improvement. So we will work through our budget office and our finance committee, and we will be bringing back those details because there will be agreements that will be necessary with the Florida Department of Transportation. And like I said, a lot of that's going to come down to timing. They're not going to ask for $40 million that we give that to them in 3 months. That will most likely at least be 12 months away, and could be 2 separate payments, if you will. So we need them to sharpen their pencil, and we will work on the funding strategies and come back to the board for that. Amy, County Manager, did you want to add anything else?
No, thank you.
All right, so we have a motion and a second.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
When are you going to come back with those numbers? Because it's important. I mean, I'm all about supporting moving those initiatives forward, but we need to be able to have some timelines as to where the money's going to come from to be able to make the commitment.
I want to be back before our budget hearings. I'm going to light the fire under FDOT to sharpen their pencils as soon as they can. I'll be contacting Secretary Nandum first thing in the morning. I don't think he wants me to call him tonight, but I'll give him a call first thing in the morning and have him set his people on their sprint so they can get the information back to us.
And did I understand we're having a workshop on February 6th for the AUIR and the budget budget initiatives?
Yes, sir. Strategic planning, the AUIR, and then it is the precursor to budget guidance.
Okay.
Great. Any other questions, comments? Motion and a second. All in favor to move it forward, say aye. Aye. All opposed? None. With that, County Manager?
Sir, if that's Commissioner Saunders,
Yeah, I just want to thank our staff for, especially transportation, tonight in terms of putting together this program and the work that they've been doing for the last literally almost 2 months to come up with some potential solutions. I want to thank the people that were here this evening to express their positions. I think it was a very good hearing. I'm disappointed in the outcome, but we'll move on. Thank you.
That's all we have, Commissioner.
Great.
That concludes our agenda for tonight.
Have a good evening, safe travels, we're finished.